Good afternoon. Welcome to RSBN Live. I'm Matthew Alvarez.
And I'm Robert McNeely. Of course, we're seeing the Emerald Isle known as the White House. I love the greenery as we're getting closer to spring, Matthew. What a beautiful day in our nation's capital as it is live here at Right Side Broadcasting Network head studios in the friendliest village on the plains, Auburn, Alabama.
Always good to be here in Alabama, and it is awesome to see you here on Tuesday, March 18th. Of course, we have a lot of news to bring you today. President Trump speaking earlier to Vladimir Putin. Also, he's signing executive orders a little bit later today at the White House. And of course, Bobby, the JFK files being released as per his announcement yesterday from the Kennedy Center.
Yeah, some really big news happening today. So we'll stay all on that as we have lots to discuss from this administration, from everything happening inside and outside of the Beltway. And we'll even be joined by a familiar friend and host, of course, reporter, MAGA, Megan Kohler, upcoming to talk about just everything happening in the news, what took place over this weekend as we had that unbridled access for you, the American people, on Air Force One. We know this auto pen discussion happening, lots going on there. President Trump truthing out that he had his, of course, portrait from the first term and the second term within the middle, that automated signature from Joseph R. Biden Jr., the 46th president of the United States. Of course, we also have the truth regarding what took place after I asked that question on Air Force One in regards to these nullifications potentially. But of course, a judge must decide whether or not these pardons and these policies will have to be enacted. We know that President Trump immediately got rid of at least 80 executive orders from the Biden era because they were awful. But, besides that, we don't know what really remains law because of this auto pen controversy.
Exactly. So as President Trump rightly put it, we had an auto pen as a president last go around. And exactly who signed it with the auto pen situation. So, yeah, we'll be following that story here at Right Side Broadcasting Network. On top of that, the CBP Home app that President Trump and DHS are talking about, it's basically saying, hey, if you are illegal in this country, you can use this app to deport, self-deport, which will actually put you on a list to be able to re-engage the United States when it comes to the legal process of immigration.
Yeah, it makes a lot of sense, and incentivizing legal immigration. And again, this is simply the laws on the books. There have been this question going on, especially in the press conference yesterday with White House Press Secretary Caroline Leavitt, some reporters asking, what is within the letter of the law? We know that those planes that were going to El Salvador are within the purview of the president's executive authority in the White House as part of being the executive branch of the federal government. These district judges can't just willy-nilly decide if they are progressive in the terms of immigration and want to turn that plane around. It doesn't work like that. And of course, this will be argued further in court. But President Trump, within his executive authority, doing what's right. And ultimately, we'll see how this continues forward. But it's nice to have an executive branch that simply follows the law for once.
And exactly. And we might have that video ready to go where President Trump, speaking about the CBP, the Customs and Border Protection app, he was actually sitting at the Oval Office and did a recording about this. As we get that directive that it's ready, we will play that for you here at Right Side Broadcasting Network. In the meantime, let's go to Colonial Metals Group. Of course, freegoldguide.com/RSBN.
Yes, if you scan that QR code right now, do what Warren Buffett and the wealthy elite are doing. They're putting their money, they're putting their time-treasured assets, 401ks and IRAs rolled into gold and silver. If you get that free gold guide too, it explains that gold has gone up in value 840%. Think about that. Since the year 2000, since we went off the gold standard in 1971 under the Nixon administration, over 7,000%. Gold does not go down. That's just a fact. So freegoldguide.com/RSBN. We'll also toss to in this broadcast one of our past interviews with Paul Stone, really a knowledgeable man on all of these assets and how you can avert disaster financially and have the best hedge against inflation. It's gold and silver.
There you go. So freegoldguide.com/RSBN. And speaking of within the past 24/7 news cycle, Tammy Bruce at the State Department having a press conference yesterday. And if you joined us yesterday, you saw a live press conference from the White House. You saw other press conferences as well from the Pentagon. We'll show you the State Department as well, just to really give you that kind of wide scope. Isn't that good? I mean,
yes.
As a citizen, of this country, if you don't work in media and you're looking to find what is the latest with the State Department, the Pentagon, the White House, the news, and also from a conservative media standpoint, which is simple, it's common sense reporting and exactly what's happening out there.
Well, and this is what's great, Matthew. We've touched on the fact that this cabinet and positions established and appointed by the executive office of the president, these people are not only subject matter experts in their fields, they're used to media. They've been on shows as correspondents or as television hosts. They're great communicators. You just think about our Secretary of Defense, Pete Hegseth. How about his communications director, Sean Parnell, focused on the warrior preparedness of our elite fighting forces. It's meritocracy. It's getting that message out there. And again, everyone has one of these. So they are experts at just turning this on and talking to the American people. And what a relief that is from an administration that they left everyone in the dark. They hid things. Even this weekend, speaking to colleagues in the media, had just mentioned that it was so hard in the last administration to get a comment from the president, let alone anyone in the administration on core questions. It doesn't matter if you're conservative or liberal. What is actually happening? You are responsible to those who put you there, the American people. And that's why this group of people, these cabinet officials, and these executive appointees, just outstanding when it comes to transparency.
Talk about transparency. Let's go to President Trump's recent post on Truth Social and X. The White House posted this, and also the Department of Homeland Security, all about this Customs and Border Protection app. Take a listen.
People in our country illegally can self-deport the easy way, or they can get deported the hard way, and that's not pleasant. The Biden administration exploited the CBP-1 app to allow more than 1 million aliens to illegally enter the United States. Now my administration is launching the CBP Home app to give people in our country illegally an easy way to leave now and self-deport voluntarily. If they do, they could potentially have the opportunity to return legally at some point in the future. But if they do not avail themselves of this opportunity, then they will be found, they will be deported, and they will never be admitted again to the United States, ever again. You're never coming in. Using the CBP Home app to leave the United States voluntarily is the safest option for illegal aliens and our law enforcement. It also saves the U.S. taxpayer dollars and valuable CBP and ICE resources. And all of those resources are necessary to focus on dangerous criminal aliens, and that's what we're focused on. The CBP Home app is now available free across all mobile app stores, and I encourage those who have violated our laws to use this option today. Do it right and come back into our country. Do it wrong and you'll never be back again.
So there you go. I mean, the president himself being so transparent to talk about here's how the app works. And it's not only coming from, Kristi Noem at the Department of Homeland Security, it's coming from the top guy.
Oh, exactly. They are carrying out the mission and the directives of the President of the United States. And as such, we've been reminded if you don't do that, there's the door. It's not intimidating anyone. It's simply the role of the cabinet to serve at the pleasure of the President of the United States. So it's great that everyone's on the same page. Also, everyone can openly talk about this because Vice President J.D. Vance was asked about this recently, that there might have been disagreements, potential leaks from within the White House, which is really a shame that any low-level staffer would do that really on either side of the aisle. If you have an issue, come and talk to your team instead of doing that. But clearly we know that the transparency, everyone has a freedom to speak their piece at that table. It's an equal branch of government that they don't have to be afraid. In fact, that's why President Trump is so good at this role. It's about listening, taking in the information, then making a decision, and the buck stops with him. And he has a team of experts around him dedicated to making America great again.
I've always liked with President Trump, of course, that he understands what's happening out there in the world. He's got a great worldview. He understands. He's already been a president, right?
Right.
But he will also ask questions to his department heads as well. Like, he's not always just being like, it's just my way. And he says, okay, what is it that you guys need? Mm-hmm. So that's what's great about a leader, that they understand it's okay to take input. because you're on a team.
Oh, exactly. And that's why he's not just making photo ops, especially in these natural disaster areas. Again, we got hit by all those tornadoes just the other day. If you notice, listen to him, which Right Side Broadcasting Network is really the only one who brings you into those areas so we can hear what the president is asking. And you'll hear him talking, how can I make this better? Not only the experts, but those on the ground, those who may have lost their homes. What can the government do to serve you? And that's his focus as a populist. And it's about time for that, because his living predecessors, they are all globalists, whether Republican or Democrat, and those days are over. Bill Clinton talked about the era of big government is over. Well, the era of Doge is here. Bill Clinton talked about it. Barack Obama talked about shrinking the government, but Donald Trump is streamlining the size and scope of government at a rate that we've never seen, with the help of Elon Musk and an incredible cabinet. And Ronald Reagan talked about this, that the closest thing to eternal life on earth is a government program. It will last forever. Look at Social Security, which was supposed to be temporary when FDR rolled that out. We now rely on that in so many ways, and God forbid you lose your number, or if that gets into the wrong hands. So it's an exciting time to actually seriously be streamlining and reducing the size of government bloat and waste, which has really harmed our country.
It has 100%. We have a couple incoming reports that we're going to share with you in just a second. This is all brought to you by mypillow.com/RSBN. A great percentage off there, up to 80% off of more than 2,000 products. You see the information right there on your screen, Robert. And as you know, the My Cross, My Towels, the flannel sheets, there's so many options, aren't there?
Oh, there really are. So you have the My Cross, save 30%. Wear the cross that Mr. Mike Lindell wears himself. What an opportunity to share your faith with others. There's also the 6-pack towel set for $29.98. I mean, even great deals in the store will not get you that. How about the flannel sheets? Super comfortable, and some of the best that he has. You can even upgrade to those Giza sheets from the Mediterranean Sea. I mean, the best cotton really in the world, although that Alabama cotton, really quite comfortable as well. But everything's made here in the USA, all the way up in Minnesota, the great state that Mr. Mike Lindell hails from. And of course, a champion of free speech and the Constitution, also equal rights, voting rights as well. This man wants to streamline voting in this country, and he's been a voice against those who want to take away your right to vote. So go to mypillow.com/RSBN, 2,000 items for up to 80% off. Nothing better.
Exactly. All right, so it's 1:19 Eastern Time. Thanks so much for joining us here on RSBN Live as we take a beautiful live look of a blue sky day there on March 18th, this Tuesday, the day after St. Patty's Day. Hope you all had a good time. And, it was also just awesome to think about St. Patrick, the fact that he went to Ireland to share Christianity to that country, and what a great person.
Yes, an amazing story. He was a slave at first, brought to the island country, and returned to evangelize it. So British Roman background, of course, at the time, and was not Irish himself, but is a legend in Irish culture and really Western civilization as a result. So someone we can look to when you might have those times of struggle, and someone who persevered, no question about it.
Always good to overcome whatever hurdle happens. We saw that with President Trump, and here we are, less than 60 days into his second administration. We're seeing a few reports out there from Breaking 911 that President Trump and Vladimir Putin have held a phone call for nearly 3 hours amid discussions over the Ukraine ceasefire. We're also seeing that the JFK files set to be released today will allegedly have no redactions. So that means no Sharpie, blanking out various words and sentences and paragraphs. So that's going to be happening today. And of course, we're waiting for a lot of files that the government has said they were going to release. Representative Anna Paulina Luna with that task force, for the declassification task force. We're waiting for the Epstein files. You got the JFK files and others out there. So yeah, we'll monitor it, and as soon as we get it, we'll release that to you here at Right Side. Joining us now, of course, is RSBN host Megan Kohler, joining us live right now. It's 1:20 Eastern. Megan, thanks so much for joining us here on Right Side Broadcasting Network.
Thanks, guys, and good afternoon. I'm happy to be on today.
Definitely. So your thoughts about what's been going on over the past almost, 2 months now, as President Trump has been doing so good as the president?
President Trump and his team have been moving at lightning speed, and even some of the mainstream media correspondents have admittedly not been able to even keep up with what they're doing so far. So extremely productive, and I'm proud of the team so far.
Megan, what are your thoughts on this auto pen controversy? I had the pleasure of speaking to the president on Air Force One regarding all of that. And, he was talking about that it ultimately has to end up, with the judge's decision. But very strange that we have these signatures that seem to be printed, something you would find on, the M&Ms that you get at the White House, not an actual signature by the President of the United States. This spells scandal like no other.
Exactly. And President Trump said himself that you can use AutoPen for very small things. If you're super busy and somebody sends in a graduation invitation and saying, hey, I graduated college to the White House, then they send back something that says, congratulations, good job, and has an AutoPen signature. But for legally binding documents, especially something from the President of the United States on such important topics, these should be actual handwritten, legally signed documents by the president himself. And it leads to the question of who was actually signing President Biden's pardons, who was signing his documents, who was actually running the country behind the scenes. And this whole scandal is just furthering the distrust of the American people in our government system.
Exactly. And outside of that, we're seeing the corruption in various departments go exit stage left. Great to see that. And one of the ones I know that you're passionate about is making America healthy again. Your thoughts about RFK Jr. And I don't know if you saw the video the other day. He was trying to pronounce all of these ingredients that were in various food items, and there was a number of people trying to do that. It's pretty awesome to see that he's really working on making America healthy again.
It's funny you bring that up because that's actually how I discovered my passion for health. When I was in health class back in the day, I was reading the ingredient labels because we were in home economics and health in my middle school, and I was learning how to cook. And then I'm looking at the ingredients in these processed foods, and I'm trying to pronounce them, and I could barely even read what they're saying. And I'm like, what's in Hershey's chocolate? What's actually in a s'mores? What's in the marshmallows? What's in the graham crackers? What if I wanted to make it at home by scratch? So it's just interesting that you bring that up. And now RFK is bringing that to light in front of the American people, doing something like that. And it's a disgrace that we even have chemicals that we cannot pronunciate in our food here in the United States, when there are companies making these foods here in the US, also making the same exact foods in Europe without all the chemicals. So it leads me to believe that this is something that they're doing purposefully. They maybe are doing it cheaper so that we can get cheaper products here in America, but it's also directly making Americans sicker because there's so many people that eat processed foods in this country.
Well, it's a problem, too, when you have Europe not buying into poultry and meat from the United States. Doesn't make a lot of sense, given the fact of our history with Chicago, Fort Worth, Texas. These were major cow towns back in the day, and all the tariffs that the Canadians slap on the dairy farmers in Minnesota and Wisconsin. Megan, what are some of your thoughts, too, on the Secret Service details being removed from Hunter and Ashley Biden at the directive of President Trump?
The fact that Hunter Biden had 18 Secret Service agents on the detail is just ridiculous. You have to pay for those people to actually work, the travel, the hotel, the meals, all that stuff. 18 people is a lot for somebody who wasn't even holding an office position. It was his dad who was the president. Hunter Biden is well over the age of 16, which is when you get your Secret Service until you're 16 years old. And then beyond that, it's kind of on you after the presidency is over for the direct family members. He's well above old enough to fend for himself, in my opinion. And I just think this is a waste of taxpayer money. And that's what Doge is going in and doing, cutting expenses like this.
Megan, let's go back about 5 or 6 months to the campaign trail when you were out there, Robert's out there, Christina Loren, Ashley Brassfield, and others. And that excitement that you saw from We the People and all the USA chants that were happening. I think at this point you're hearing the USA chants from afar because everybody is still the same people. They're still very happy that the promises made that we all heard on the campaign trail are being kept in this second administration. So your thoughts about just that, just the fact that the country is applauding what's happening right now. And I think more people, even on the left side of the aisle, are having to draw a line and say, well, I either have to be anti-woke or really dive into this woke radical mindset.
So true. And I knew that President Trump was going to win on election night because of what we saw at all the rallies. People were camping out overnight in the freezing cold just to get a good spot to see President Trump with their own eyes because they knew this is such a historical moment for our country. So I knew the enthusiasm was there the entire time, even more so than the 2016 run when President Trump was in office for the first time. And I knew that was more of a silent majority notion the first time he got in office. But this time, I think more and more people are embracing patriotism and embracing our traditional family conservative values. It's considered conservative now to want a family and to be a traditional person because, I mean, the woke has gone so far radical left that it's unrecognizable. The people who are just nice, normal, everyday Americans that used to vote Democrat are looking at the woke agenda now in just utter shock. It's gone way too far. And the American people are craving radical transparency. We need to show the American people that they can trust what's going on in our government. And that's what President Trump and Elon Musk and everybody else on his team are doing right now in the White House. And I think everybody can agree on that the radical waste that we've been wasting our taxpayer dollars on is something that we need to be cutting. So I can't see why anybody would be opposed to DOGE and what they're doing with that. So I think that the patriotism is definitely growing in this country.
To your point, the radical transparency, I've never heard those two words together with this situation. That's perfect because that's what we're seeing in the second administration. But Robert and Megan and all of us here at Right Side, isn't that what we are held to do as well? To have radical transparency as we cover stories, as we cover this White House. And that's a great point because the people want to trust the government when it comes to the government we have right now with President Trump. And they do because they voted for him in a majority. And he already did great things in the first administration, but they also want to trust a media outlet or outlets that are on the right side of history. So I just want to talk to both of you guys about that. Your thoughts about that?
Well, I mean, it's just, look at promises made, promises kept. I mean, we've been able here to transition into a live desk that features all of that unbridled access to the president, of course, the vice president and the 119th Congress, just as we did on the campaign trail. And Megan, I remember the first one we did together was in North Carolina, if I'm not mistaken, and it was the first outdoor rally post-Butler, Pennsylvania, and the scary moments that took place there. Of course, we saw the Trump Force One flyover. It was nice seeing the plane just relaxing, taking a rest at PBI over the weekend. But if you remember, another outlet would actually run the story after the rally. It looked like no one was there when it was a packed house.
That's exactly right. And that's why I'm proud to be part of RSBN because we keep the cameras rolling. That was one of the reasons that President Trump was always watching us because he would put us on his plane while he's flying to the rally because he wants to see what's happening. What's the crowd like? How many people are there? He wants to see the interviews with the people going on ahead of time, our commentary of what we're seeing, eyes and ears on the ground. So that's why RSBN is different and set apart, and we are here to share the truth, and I'm proud to do that. And I remember that rally very well in North Carolina. That was the first time since the Butler assassination attempt, the first one that was outside. And when I look around on the media risers during the rallies, there's a lot of other media people standing in front of the speaker. When we would be rolling the cameras, Bobby, you and I would be, waiting as we're showing the speakers going. And then I look around and some of the other outlets are speaking right in front of the show that's going on. It's like we don't want you to see the message of what's going on behind us. Watch us, listen to us, what we have to say.
Yeah.
And when you sit here and watch the entire live stream of the entire rally, then you can get the whole message and the whole truth of what actually happened that day.
And isn't that interesting? Because another great point, Megan, because when somebody's there standing on camera and President Trump is speaking behind them, and we've seen that before, them doing a live hit or them doing some kind of recording or coverage, they're acting like, hey, guess what? We're here too. We're balanced. We're covering the president, but they're not listening to what the president's saying. It's listening to the correspondent spin and lie and do false narratives to do what? To sway public opinion, to make them want to vote for somebody else. And we all got sick and tired of that over the years. And that's why us three and others here at this network are very happy to be a part of conservative media.
No question about that. It's a new dawn, a new day for the American people and for transparency right here at home. Megan Kohler, always a pleasure to have you on the show. Please come back soon, and we always look forward to your analysis out in the field.
Absolutely. Thank you both.
Thank you. All right, so it's the bottom of the hour, 1:31 here on Tuesday, March 18th. We'll be going to the State Department press conference, which happened within the 24/7 news cycle here shortly. We'll also go to that Paul Stone interview with Colonial Metals Group, a real good context on gold and silver, but also the current economic situations out there.
Yes, always smart to get that hedge against inflation. Gold and silver, always a great way to go. As well as, you know what's so great about this movement, Matthew? I think people are spending dollars again where they want to spend it, where they can feel they're friends with the people on the other side. They can call them up and say, hey, this product didn't really work for me. Can we make an arrangement to fix that? Yes, we can. Shared dollars, shared values going to what we care about, because that's another thing with the right side of history. We don't want to cancel people because of their disagreements. We want people to thrive, and we don't want people to necessarily not have jobs because they disagree with us. But it's nice to have companies that will not cancel us in the same way that so many people have experienced simply for going to church or having a right view on different things or being mocked by the far left elite, so-called, in Hollywood. But to Megan's point, look at Mr. Culkin. Mr. Macaulay Culkin's brother just won an Academy Award, and he said, hey, honey, we have the agreement. We said, if I win, we're going to have another kid. It's just a defense of marriage and family like we haven't seen in the 21st century. I think a lot of it has to do with Donald Trump and his wanting to be that culture warrior.
I can sum up what you said in one word: freedom.
Freedom. Amen. Yeah. Freedom of choice.
Yes. So let's go to another great sponsor, PatriotAddictDeals.com. This is awesome. You see it right there on the left side of your screen. Robert, I know you have one of these from last time, but there's only a few left. That's what we're told.
You know, it goes fast, and the fact that they have this available, again, is really a treat. Claim your 20% off now using code RSBN20, Trump Force 1 Airplane, PatriotAddictDeals.com. That's PatriotAddictDeals.com. And the website says it clearly. You will be addicted to the items on here, and they're great collectibles for your MAGA man cave or, that office where you can show people, this is where I stand.
Definitely. So those of you that like aviation, there you go, PatriotAddictDeals.com, and especially those of you that like President Trump and aviation. Of course, seeing, Trump Force One, Air Force One, recently you saw both. So when you were at Palm Beach, you were in Air Force One, but did you see out the window Trump Force One?
Yes, and actually took some footage of that. It was a little bit rainy, and the reflection being on the inside did not really help. Of course, there's a great live shot from when we were about to go on before I asked the first question on Friday. President Trump on Marine One there, being greeted by the Marines and the Air Force. And that's just, you love to see the pageantry behind it, our military. The folks who are looking over Air Force One and Marine One, this is their full-time occupation. They are great stewards and highly smart, some of the best veterans and members of the military. Of course, though, that's Marine One flying in also with the second chopper. The first had already come in with the staff as well. So every time Marine One flies, there's three that accompany.
Yeah.
And it's with staffers and other officials who will be joining the president as well. So great footage there to enjoy what was a loud tarmac, but fun to be with the president this weekend. He's just such a jovial individual, considering all that's on his mind, all that his family has been through in order to push forward these great principles. And like he said, it's about time we know we have someone in the Oval Office who knows something about money, when he was criticizing crooked Hillary Clinton nearly a decade ago. And he saved us from Hillary Clinton. He saved us from Kamala Harris. I mean, these people are Marxist, globalists who simply are greedy and wanted to do things for their own interests. This man has taken hell and high water for the American people, and we're proud to cover him right here at Right Side Broadcasting Network.
President Trump standing for we the people standing for President Trump. We saw what happened on November 5th. We saw all of the rallies. We saw just the common sense approach to our country and our government. And there was none in the past government, but here we are, less than 2 months in, and approaching that 2-month mark here in just a couple days. Looking forward to seeing more of the executive orders. President Trump to sign a number of them at about 3:30 Eastern time. So we'll upload that video on Rumble if we're not live for some reason. But we do know, of course, later today, there will be a live stream. If those of you that like aviation, let's go to space. How about that? NASA and SpaceX at 4:45 Eastern. We're going to have that live stream of that splashdown that's going to happen out off the coast of Florida. That's at about 5:57 Eastern time. So those couple astronauts that have been there for months, well, they're on their way back, and they're on the way back now. So we're looking forward to that splashdown. You can watch that right here on Right Side Broadcasting Network.
And we can remember when Elon Musk was explaining this to President Obama, and then President Obama went along with defunding NASA. So that wasn't very smart, but we look to now that they're leaning on Space Force and, of course, SpaceX to help with these astronauts who were abandoned. Great videos from up there, too. A lot of them saying they put their faith in Jesus. You know, these things go wrong sometimes, and it's great to have someone like Elon lending a hand with these technological things that he makes look very, very easy. And that probably would have been the cherry on top of a great weekend of access to the president because, of course, Elon was joined by little X. And we saw President Trump walking out of the Oval Office with little X, stopping for a moment, making the X mark and then pointing to him. And he was hopping along. And kids reveal the truth. I mean, don't they? They tell you whether or not they like someone. And little X is a big fan of President Trump.
Always good to see that, and always good to see the U.S. Capitol building as well, as we are live right now at 1:37 Eastern time. Speaking of the President Trump, let's talk about the Free Trump book, freetrumpbook.com. So many titles, as we saw. I mean, there's more than 5. There's like 20 titles that you can check out at freetrumpbook.com.
Just great stuff explaining the history of this nation, the civil rights movement, women's suffrage, which is at its 100-year anniversary, or actually the 105th anniversary, I believe. I need to double check on that, but it was in the 1920s. So an amazing thing that young patriots at home can learn about thanks to Mike Huckabee and his team. You know, actually my favorite cover is the one against censorship because it's the kid's guide.
Let's see if I have it here.
It has the Statue of Liberty with duct tape over her mouth. That might be somewhere in there. But the Kid's Guide to American Greatness, this is probably the best on all of the topics of the great movements that have been in America. But I think we have that right there for you. The Kid's Guide to the End of Censorship. So it has Statue of Liberty there with the duct tape over her mouth, which we don't want because what leads to more freedom, what leads to more dialogue and understanding? More speech, even the worst kinds of hate speech. And hate speech does not include things like if you were to pull the fire alarm in a movie theater and say, fire, that's not speech, that's harming people. Mm-hmm. And that's what we saw with some of these radical Islamic terrorist sympathizers with visas at Columbia University. They're on campus inciting violence, stopping peaceful dialogue from happening, prohibiting people from going to class when they've paid all this money to advance themselves, whether they be from here domestically in America or from around the world. So Marco Rubio made that very clear this weekend on many morning shows on Sunday, saying that's a violation of your visa and your green card. No, you don't have equal rights. You're not a citizen. These rights inherent by God are bestowed upon American citizens. When you have a visa or a green card, you are a guest of this nation, and we want you here. We want you to bring these technological advances to the world. Vice President Vance talked about it this morning, but when you are violating the inherent God-given rights, in this case, especially against our Jewish friends and citizens of this country, sorry, there's the door.
100%. That is the truth right there. We are also seeing an email from the White House. The readout of President Donald J. Trump's call with President Vladimir Putin. This is just breaking news here. Today, President Trump and President Putin spoke about the need for peace and a ceasefire in the Ukraine war. Both leaders agreed this conflict needs to end with a lasting peace. They also stressed the need for improved bilateral relations between the U.S. and Russia. The blood and treasure that both Ukraine and Russia have been spending in this war would be better spent on the needs of their people. So it goes on. There's a few more paragraphs there, but it does say at the end, the two leaders agreed that a future with an improved bilateral relationship between the United States and Russia has a huge upside. This includes enormous economic deals and geopolitical stability with peace when peace has been achieved. So That from the White House just a few minutes ago, and that was posted on the Rapid Response X page. And again, to Megan's point, the radical transparency. Here it is.
Mm-hmm. You will always find that from this president, this administration, and as Caroline Leavitt mentioned in her first press briefing, the greatest spokesperson for the White House, of course, 1600 Pennsylvania Avenue, is the commander-in-chief. And it looks like we're getting there inch by inch, step by step. You know, President Putin has gone into Ukraine illegally. I mean, everyone has border sovereignty, but the Ukrainian government has not been participating, let's just say, fairly in this process. It's okay to have two governments that we are not for. In fact, in many ways, diametrically opposed to, even though you hear from the far left talking points that have an agenda in this, that somehow President Trump is a puppet for Putin. Nothing could be further from the truth. He will dialogue with friends. He will dialogue with foes, because ultimately peace is the hardest asset to achieve, and it's through that tough dialogue, and I'm glad to see it happening
You
today.
have to have that interaction, the president said, with
Right.
both Vladimir Zelensky and Vladimir Putin, and so he has done that. I will read the next two paragraphs as part of the readout of the president, since this is breaking right now. So this conflict should have never started and should have been ended a long time ago with sincere and good faith peace efforts. The leaders agreed that the movement to peace will begin with an energy and infrastructure ceasefire, as well as technical negotiations on implementation of a maritime ceasefire in the Black Sea, full ceasefire and permanent peace. These negotiations will begin immediately in the Middle East. The leaders, President Trump and Vladimir Putin of Russia, spoke broadly about the Middle East as a region of potential cooperation to prevent future conflicts. They further discussed the need to stop proliferation of strategic weapons and will engage with others to ensure the broadest possible application. The two leaders shared the view that Iran should never be in a position to destroy Israel. And then I already read the last part there. So that's all over the internet right now, this readout of President Donald Trump's call with President Vladimir Putin. Later today, when the president is signing executive orders from the White House, I'm sure that is something that will be talked about in length there.
He was very eager to speak about that this weekend, opening both of our mini press conferences off and aboard Air Force One, just detailing this is the update with Russia. He always led with that. Great to have that transparency from the commander-in-chief as promised to us, because these are complicated situations and changing literally by the minute. And mind you, this has been agreed to by the Ukrainians, not quite the Russians yet. So the Russian military is surrounding the Ukrainian military. As President Trump has said to Zelensky and to the American media, they really don't have the cards to play. They are surrounded right now, and we want the killing to stop. And that's what we're getting to.
Exactly. All right, before we go to the State Department, within the 24/7 news cycle of a recent press conference just yesterday with Tammy Bruce, and before we go to the Paul Stone interview, let's thank a few sponsors. AngelPaste.com out of Spring, Texas, of course. RSBN promo code goes a long way as well.
Non-GMO, no chemicals from Spring, Texas, just off of the Gulf of America. Awesome products that will really make your skin glowing and feel great. Vitamin B's, vitamin C's. You don't have to worry what you're putting on your skin because it's good for your body. Immune fighting, beautiful vitamin C orange options. Of course, you have the Miracle Cream there that has the vitamin B content and a natural mosquito deterrent. So that would be great for the summertime, because that tropical weather there in Texas, you know, really off of the Gulf, a lot of mosquitoes can come and bite you. You don't want that when you're celebrating the birth of America come 4th of July with all those beautiful fireworks. So go to angelpaste.com, again, Christian owned. They hire veterans as well. So a wonderful company and just the nicest people. Angelpaste.com. Be sure to get your options today. They also have a Manly Men line. So don't be afraid, guys. If it's for you or a gift for your lovely lady out there, Miracle Cream, angelpaste.com, the place to go.
RSBN is that promo code for that. 1:45 Eastern Time, Tuesday, March 18th. President Trump to sign some executive orders around 3:30 Eastern today. Of course, just getting off the phone with the president of Russia. That readout just was read here on the network. We'll also, I'm sure, post that at various places. Also, a little bit later, the SpaceX and NASA expecting a 5:57 Eastern Time splashdown in Florida tonight. That's 62-year-old astronaut Butch Wilmore and 59-year-old Suni Williams are aboard SpaceX's Crew Dragon capsule called, of all things, Freedom, which is set to re-enter Earth today with a Florida splashdown set for around 6 p.m. Eastern time frame, exactly 5:57. We can actually watch that together if you'd like at 4:45 a bit later today, a live stream. We have the NASA footage. We'll be able to bring that live to you right here on Right Side Broadcasting Network.
It'll be very exciting to watch on the heels of that successful SpaceX launch while we were in the air with Air Force One. Every day is like Christmas with this administration laser focused at making the American way of life really live up to not only its expectations, but beyond that. Every day, President Trump committed to these undying principles, and it's exciting to see someone who knows exactly how to handle it.
Exactly. All right, so we know that President Trump and the cabinet are an all-star cast of great leaders that President Trump has selected, and these are we the people as well. They're not like something that's way high up here. They're actually a part of us.
Yes.
When President Trump said, when we win the White House, so he understands the collective of us being on the side of freedom, on the side of the Constitution here in this country. So let's go to the State Department. Of course, Marco Rubio, the Secretary of State, one of President Trump's great picks. Well, his chief spokesperson, Tammy Bruce, actually just held a press conference within that 24/7 news cycle. We're going to go to that, and then when that's done, we'll see you on the other side of that right here live on Right Side Broadcasting Network.
How are you doing?
Well,
Matt Lee.
how are you?
Nice to see Andrea Mitchell here again. Thank you, ma'am. I'm here after a rather big trip. All right, so are we, we're set? Everybody good? Great. So I'm going to start with a little bit of a statement here today. Welcome aboard, everyone. Nadia, nice to see you. During my first briefing, I said that under President Trump, peace through strength is back. That was clear from day one under this administration. The 11 days since my first briefing have further proven it. In an important advancement for peace, America's top diplomat, Secretary Marco Rubio, and National Security Advisor Mike Waltz traveled to Jeddah, Saudi Arabia, to meet with the Ukrainian delegation. As a result, Ukraine expressed readiness to accept the U.S. proposal to enact an immediate interim 30-day ceasefire to the Russia-Ukraine conflict. The ball is now in Russia's court, and even more advances have been made after envoy Witkoff's visit there as well. Following this historic meeting, Secretary Rubio traveled to the G7 in Canada, where our partners expressed support for a swift end and a durable end to this conflict. And as we pursued peace, our nation also showed strength. Under the President's direction, this administration invoked the Alien Enemies Act of 1798 to initiate the removal of hundreds of dangerous members of the Tren de Aragua, a vicious, violent foreign terrorist organization, which has been threatening our nation, conducting irregular warfare, and terrorizing Americans. We express our sincere gratitude to President Bukele of El Salvador for playing a pivotal role in this transfer. As Secretary Rubio said, once again, President Bukele has shown he is not only the strongest security leader in our region, he's also a great friend of the United States. In our fight against terrorists, President Trump ordered the launch of decisive and powerful U.S. military deterrence operations against the Iranian-backed Houthi terrorists in Yemen. Following the strikes, Secretary Rubio noted that the president, quote, sent a powerful and clear message. These attacks on U.S. vessels and global shipping must stop, and we will hold you accountable. We will protect our people and freedom of navigation. In furtherance of President Trump's maximum pressure policy on the Iranian regime, last week the State Department announced sanctions on Iran's oil minister and shadow fleet that facilitates Iran's illicit crude oil trade. These actions were taken to stop the flow of revenue to the Iranian regime that uses to fuel conflict in the Middle East, advances its nuclear program, and supports its terrorist proxies. In addition, the State Department will consider revoking the visas of foreigners who have supported Hamas and unleashed anti-Semitic harassment, intimidation, vandalism, and violence on America's college campuses. As Secretary Rubio said on March 6th, those who support designated terrorist organizations, including Hamas, threaten U.S. national security. And we intend to use the department's broad authority to revoke visas when information comes to light indicating a visa holder may be inadmissible or ineligible under U.S. immigration law. Here's the bottom line. Secretary Rubio's State Department remains committed to advancing the national interests of the United States. Peace through strength is back. Not that we have a lot of things to discuss, and I see it all on your faces, but it is good to be back. I've been away for, I don't know, 10 days now or so, but I'm looking forward to answering your questions. We will begin again with Matt Lee.
Thank you, Tammy. I had 3 processy kind of questions, but for the sake of my colleagues, and I know there's a lot to ask, I'll break it down to 2. They'll be very brief.
All right.
1, on the South African ambassador who the secretary declared PNG on Friday.
Sure.
The South Africans seem to be a little bit miffed that they learned about this from a X post. And I understand there was a meeting at which a formal diplomatic note explaining this was handed over. Can you, what day was that, the meeting?
Well, it was the same day of
Friday.
the announcement, yes. So after Secretary Rubio made his decision, our senior level diplomats convoked the South African embassy staff for an in-person meeting at the State Department. At this meeting, our officials delivered the official notification of Ambassador Rasool's persona non grata status, and it was done.
Okay, and I understand that his privileges and immunities expire today, and then he has to leave by Friday?
That's right. So he has, for these 3 days that passed, he's had his privileges, but those did expire today. And he has, technically, it's a week from the notice, and so that expires now on Friday.
Okay.
He'll need to be out of the country.
Okay. And then my second one is what you mentioned before on the AEA, the Alien Enemies Act. As you know, as this building certainly knows, there are several provisions that or several criteria that have to be met in order to invoke this. One is there being a declaration of war with the country in which this force is from, or that the invasion or incursion, or however you want to call it, is being orchestrated or influenced by a sovereign state. Does the U.S. now regard Nicolas Maduro as the legitimate head of state of Venezuela? And secondly, if you do, or even if you don't, are Maduro and the state of Venezuela now covered by the Foreign Sovereign Immunities Act?
You know, just before I came up here, my colleague, Caroline Levitt, had a great deal to say about this. This belongs at the White House. This is a dynamic that's happening out of the White House.
This is a legal
Well, but I also,
determination.
in addition to that fact of referring you back to the White House and to DHS regarding this, this is in the courts. And as you know, I'm not going to pontificate on or guess or muse about what's going on with the courts at this point. So clearly the White House has been very transparent. Caroline was very clear this afternoon about their approach. Clearly, they feel that this is something they want to litigate, and they're going to. And for the good of the American public, it's an important thing to do. Everything we know that the Trump administration is doing, certainly President Trump himself and his team, is in the interests of the United States.
I understand
and that's why he was elected. People are excited about the nature of the actions that we're taking swiftly. And this is one of them, and we will see it play out in court, and that's the extent of what
my question is not about.
So now there's a third section. I thought you said you were going to forego the third part.
No, I'd just like to have an answer to the first question. Does the U.S. consider Nicolas Maduro to be the
I'm not going to discuss with you again a national issue that belongs both with the White House and the Secretary himself, so I'm not going to be able to remark on that. All right. Based on the same dynamic here, I guess for the Americas, the situation, Andrea Mitchell, please.
This is related to the immigration issue.
Sure.
And peace through strength.
Sure.
Does Secretary Rubio believe that if Afghanistan is among the countries that are on a list, a draft list to be banned, that legitimate SIVs who were approved by the State Department during the fall of Afghanistan as withdrawal should be a carve-out, and that these people who help the State Department, the CIA, the DOD, can come and have refugee status. I do have a follow-up.
Well, first of all, there's no list. What people are looking at over these last several days is not a list that exists here that is being acted on. There is a review, as we know through the President's executive order, for us to look at the nature of what's going to help keep America safer in dealing with the issue of visas and who's allowed into the country. But what has been touted as something that is an item through the State Department, it just simply isn't the case. So the premise, I have to say, I certainly can't speak to because it's not accurate. When it comes to the nature of Afghanistan and those who have helped us, the arrangements we've made already in the past, getting as many people from that conflict here, certainly those who have assisted us and worked with us, that's been a policy and a dynamic that we've worked on from certainly even the previous administration, working to try to get that happening. So that's not something that is certainly I can talk about regarding something that doesn't exist, but certainly when that review is done, we'll have something that we can discuss.
Okay, then let me ask you also
Yes.
About your view, the Secretary's view, about the legality of a foreign country holding an American citizen from Iowa who has not been charged with any crime and holding his passport and not permitting him to return home in the case of what's happening in Punta Cana and the Dominican Republic, where this young man and his family and his lawyers say that he has not been permitted to leave the Dominican Republic, that he has been a cooperating witness, he's not charged with any crime. Does the State Department have any view about the rights of that U.S. citizen?
Well, I think what's appropriate here is for me to not to, this is unfortunately the nature of the State Department and what we do. When it comes to diplomatic efforts, whether they exist or not, the nature of legal frameworks for individuals, the privacy issues involved, that's not something I can get into any detail about.
Well, he has spoken publicly, and his family have. Does he have consular access?
Well, that's his. I think all of us have a right to speak and to be known, but we have a standard and a protocol here that we won't discuss a private situation, a private case. Certainly, when it comes to diplomacy, diplomatic relationships between one country and another, I'm not going to go into those details. All right, Sean.
Thanks. Can I go back to South Africa, the ambassador?
Sure.
The secretary, of course, had his ex posted on Friday. Could you explain a little bit the reasons? It's quite an extraordinary step. I was looking back, I mean, if I'm not mistaken, even in the height of tensions with Russia, there was no expulsion of the ambassador and no PNG there. What is it? I mean, essentially this is remarks that the ambassador made at a think tank or at a conference that were critical. What I'm getting at is, should other ambassadors be on alert? Can they not criticize President Trump without fear of being expelled?
Well, I think it's not about criticism. This was the equation of the president and the country with white supremacy. It was an allegation that casts such an awful light on the nature of the country, on individuals. It is. I mean, if we don't have a standard about the nature of someone who is in this country, who is supposed to be a diplomat to help facilitate the relationship between two countries, and that this is the standard of it, you know, we deserve better. We've had a decent level of diplomacy with South Africa. There are some challenges, but you want people in each embassy who can actually facilitate a relationship. And these remarks were unacceptable to the United States, not just to the president, but to every American. They were pretty much obscene when it came to the nature of what was alleged. So that is, I think, at the very least, what we should expect is a standard of some respect, basic, low-level respect, if you're in a position that is going to help facilitate any kind of diplomatic relationship with another country. This particular individual certainly didn't meet that standard, and it is a message to people of what America expects, what the president expects, what the Secretary of State expects, what this whole administration expects when it comes to treatment of the nation itself and as a result of the people in this country. And so that's why it was done.
Sure, could just expand on that. South Africa today said that it wants to have a better relationship with the United States. Are you open to that? I mean, there's been the Secretary of State away from the G20. Are you of the view that South Africa can report the relationship despite the criticism that's come from this building?
Well, I think both the President and the Secretary of State have made it clear what the problems are and what they have an issue with when it comes to South Africa. The unjust land expropriation law, as well as its growing relationship with countries like Russia and Iran. That's what prompted the serious review of our South Africa policy, which continues to be underway. They have taken also, the South African government, aggressive positions toward the United States and its allies, including accusing Israel, not Hamas, of genocide in the International Court of Justice, and reinvigorating its relationship with Iran to develop commercial, military, and nuclear arrangements. So this isn't one just of demeanor or decorum, however they add into it. This is a matter of a nation that is, we've again made it very clear, taking steps that are not in the best interest of providing a safe, secure, more prosperous America, let alone world, when it comes to the decisions they're making. So all of this is under review, but obviously part of it is, within the diplomacy of it, is to encourage a change in policy and posture. Of course that would be the point. The point is to encourage a change. What I've seen with the trips we've made with the diplomatic adventures, of course, as well as the G7 summit in Canada, is the nature of the Secretary of State is to make things better for people. It is not to punish or to target people or countries. It's the nature of changing policy and creating better environments for all of us. And I've seen that in motion in every dynamic. And that's the case here with South Africa as well. Nadia, yes.
Thank you so much, Tammy. Good to see you. I have a couple of questions. On Yemen first, what is the U.S. strategy regarding Yemen? Is it degrading the capabilities of the Houthis that they don't pose a threat to U.S. interests, or is it destroying them completely? Because there's conflicting statements from U.S. officials saying, like, we're not going to interfere with the civil war in Yemen.
Well, what we've seen, of course, in the past when it comes to the Houthis, it was a tit-for-tat strike. If the Houthis would be sending missiles or attacking both commercial and military ships, what the previous administration did is they would do one strike as a tit-for-tat dynamic. What's happening now is a complete shift when it comes to the nature of why it's going on, which is to stop the assault on the maritime traffic in that area. And up to this point, there's about 174 attacks on American naval ships, which is an extraordinary number of attacks. And this isn't a situation that should be managed. It has to stop. So the message to the Houthis is, if this will end when you end the attack on both commercial and military ships in that region. So it's a maritime issue, and it's meant to completely change the posture of the Houthis, and of course, in a conjunction in that dynamic with Iran. That the days of pinprick responses where we allow that to occur is over. That's, I think, a pretty clear statement from the administration as a whole as well.
On the visa thing, just
the visa,
quickly.
sure.
Is the area clear when it comes to revoking visas for foreign students? Are you revoking visas for students who clearly support Hamas and shows literature that's supporting Hamas, or is it also include students who support Palestine or the freedom of the Palestinians, or showing sympathy with civilians in Gaza? Is that area very clear?
Well, what Secretary Rubio has been saying on a number of different interviews is that this is about, when you think about someone applying to come into the country to get a visa, if you were to say everything that he ended up doing as would be his goal upon entering the country, we would never have issued the visa. So you have a dynamic, whereas if there's going to be certain kinds of actions that you're going to undertake, that we don't accept that. Every country has a right to control its borders and to determine who's going to come into the country. So in this particular instance, there's also, I know, a freedom of speech argument. But this is not about speech. It's about actions. It's about things that were done. And of course, I don't want to go further because also this is within a court dynamic. America's got the best court system in the world. And there will be arguments on both sides, no doubt, regarding this. But it has to be argued. It has to be litigated. But the actions that we take and the decisions we make are not about content. It's about actions that are occurring, and certainly in that particular case. Yes.
Can I?
Go ahead.
Can
Hi,
I?
Tammy.
Hi.
Thank you. Just to follow up on the Houthis question. So President Trump said every shot fired by the Houthis will be looked upon as a shot fired by Iran. So we're wondering, if Houthis don't back down, is the United States prepared to attack Iran or give Israel to do so?
I think you're referring to President Trump's Truth Social tweet, and I'm sure you all have it on your phones. You should, because I'm going to refer you right back to that tweet. It speaks for itself.
Right. Just to follow up on a different topic
Sure.
in that case. So Voice of America and Radio Free Asia is one of the outlets under Voice of America. They have written extensively on the oppression of Uyghur Muslims by Chinese authorities. Actually, their reports have raised awareness about the plight of Uyghurs. And this is a topic that the Secretary feels strongly about as well. We've just seen him last week impose sanctions on Thai officials over deportation of Uyghurs to China.
That's right.
What does he think about the shutdown of this outlet? Does he support this decision?
Well, and what you're referring to, I think, is the VOA and some other outlets
Correct.
involved with the current, some budgetary changes and actions that have been taken. What I can tell you, like, with all the aspects that are happening in this shift, is that it's a fluid situation. And I look forward to watching it unfold, as you do. I know you're all reporters, and some reporters here in the bullpen have been affected. But the fact of the matter is, this is serious business. It's the business of government using taxpayer dollars. So the same standard applies here. And of course, it's just happened. Carrie Lake, as essentially the envoy within this framework, is someone that Americans know and trust, and I look forward to seeing how this unfolds. But right now, it's new, it's a fluid situation, and we'll have more for you as it unfolds.
When you say fluid,
right.
could
Yes,
it
go
be
ahead.
overturned,
All right.
you mean?
All right, go ahead.
Can I just follow up on Yemen and your assessment of civilian casualties? Because you'll know there have been reports of several. What's your assessment on that?
On civilian casualties? Well, under no situation does anyone want that. This is a horrible dynamic. At the same time, the Houthis are pirates who have commandeered an entire country, in addition to attempting to commandeer and threaten and harass shipping in the maritime area there. So when we think about this dynamic, America seeks to avoid that situation, but we're now in a position where it has become untenable. America's position in this kind of a regard, it's an unfortunate framework of war and of tensions and conflict like this. But of course, we lament, I think, this country of all countries, and what we've done and what we've accomplished. We lament the loss of life. That's the aspect. Because I think this is part of the real story. All of the aspects of what the Trump administration, what Secretary Rubio and everyone now in this new administration is focused on, and maybe it surprised people, it shouldn't have, is peace, is to stop the wholesale slaughter of people, is to stop the chaos that reigns through certain regions, is to make sure, especially with certainly Ukraine and Russia, is to make sure in every place where there's conflict that the people that are alive today might be alive tomorrow. And it's imperfect. It's not something that any of us can sometimes predict the end result of. But this is an administration and a president and a Secretary of State who's made it clear that this, if there is a hallmark, the hallmark is fighting for peace and an end to this kind of chaos that has destroyed Yemenis' lives, and it destroys, obviously, too many lives around the world. Now, yes, sir, you've been waiting patiently. Yes, sir.
Two quick questions on the Palestinian issue. One pertaining to Gaza. Aid has not been allowed in since the 2nd of March. The situation is very dire. I was wondering if you are really concerned about this, especially, this coincided with the beginning of Ramadan as well, where people need food and water and so on. I mean, is starvation used as a method to pressure people? Isn't that a war crime of some sort internationally?
Well, for the horrible suffering of the Gazan people, we know where that sits. It sits with Hamas. We know that within the ceasefire, and why we fight for the ceasefire and want it to continue, is in fact to make sure that food and aid is moved into that region. The United States has led the way in that regard. We also know that at this point, when it comes to the nature of what Envoy Witkoff has worked on and what all of us still focus on is in fact what your concern is. Making sure that there's a situation on the ground that allows food to get to the people who need it, that allows aid to move through to the people who have been suffering because of the choices that Hamas has made throughout the years. And that is what we continue to work on. So everyone, certainly it's a concern, and that is why we continue to work to make sure that aid can get to the people who need it.
Yes,
sir.
Go ahead. Follow up.
Yeah.
The Syrian Interim Authority last Thursday approved a new constitution. It has granted likely no rights for the minority like Kurds and Druze in Syria, and has been rejected by these minorities, labeling it against the democracy. What's the U.S. view on that constitution? And does anyone in this department connected with the new Syrian Interim Authority? Do you have an engagement with them?
Again, when it comes to diplomatic engagements, situations as fluid and as situational like that one, that's not something I'm going to be able to answer. But I'll see what we can do when it comes to the specifics of what you've asked for.
What about the?
Yes. Right.
I have another question on Iraq.
All right.
Yeah. This administration, including Secretary Rubio himself, has called the Iraqi government to resume the Iraqi Kurdistan oil export and solve the U.S. oil companies' issue that are working in Iraq. But this hasn't happened. What's the U.S. view on that? Are you urging the Iraqi government to resume the oil export? Again,
I'm not, at this press briefing, I'm not going to go into international negotiations or diplomatic negotiations or thoughts that might be held by the Secretary of State. But we'll see when it comes to actions on that. It'll be, I think, abundantly clear. Yes, ma'am.
Syria. Thank you, Tammy. So Syria's new government, along with regional countries such as Turkey, Jordan, Qatar, and others, have been calling on the U.S. to lift the sanctions that was put in place during the Assad regime, and many view these sanctions as a significant barrier to stabilizing and rebuilding the country. Is the administration considering removing or maybe easing these sanctions?
Well, again, when we think about the administration, I think of President Trump and their posture and point of view regarding Syria, and the fact that when it comes to the State Department and the Secretary, these are things that would be negotiations that would have to be contemplated, and I'm not going to do that right here from this podium. Yes, sir.
Thanks so much, Tammy. I appreciate you taking the question. Over the weekend...
Depends on what the question is, but go for it.
Over the weekend, the U.S. deported a Lebanese citizen who was a doctor at Brown University. I was wondering if you might be able to elaborate why.
That, I would say, when it comes to that kind of action on everything we might discuss, that's the Department of Homeland Security. So that would be them.
And on violence, escalating violence in the West Bank, I guess, are there any concerns among at the State Department over what we're seeing in terms of Israeli actions in the north, in Jenin, in Tulkarm?
Well, the United States' position, certainly the State Department, is that we stand steadfastly with Israel. Israel has seen certain security concerns that they have, and they're taking actions regarding those security concerns. And we stand with those decisions and what the Israelis choose to do in that framework. Yes, sir.
Thank you. Two questions. Changing subject to South Asia. A few days before the elections, President Trump, then as a candidate, had spoken about, expressed concern about attacks on the Hindus in Bangladesh. Now that Secretary has been here for about 60 days, what is his assessment about the situation of Hindus in Bangladesh and what steps he's taking to address
President Trump?
Secretary Rubio.
Well, again, you're talking about President Trump in certain aspects about how the nation and how his administration views the nature of what's happening in another country. And Secretary Rubio, of course, follows through with his vision and the nature of the choices that are made in that regard. But when it comes to, again, negotiations, diplomatic considerations, and the conversations that those involve and what might happen, I don't want to presume here what the outcome will be. You don't want me to either. I think that the best thing to do would be to.
Question?
I'm sorry?
Can I reframe the question?
Well, no, because I'm not. What I'm not going to answer is diplomatic considerations from government to government or attitudes and approaches when it comes to what's happening in a certain country that belong within a diplomatic kind of conversation that clearly I can't speak on, or would I hypothesize about what might happen. So yes, yes, ma'am. Go ahead.
I have one more question.
Thank you, Jeremy. Just to follow up quickly on what Hamara was saying about USAGM, Radio Free Asia, and other news broadcasters, because I think you're going to get a lot of questions about this.
Oh, I expect it. I just got back into the country over the weekend. I thought, well, this will be discussed.
As you mentioned, it's affected colleagues we know in the bullpen.
Yes.
Can you just clarify when you say that you're watching this unfold? Do you know if this is something that could be reversed in terms of what they're doing with USAGM?
You want me to speculate.
No,
and I know you know I can't. And I know I come from a background where that's mostly what I did for a very long time. That I can't do here.
Okay, so my next question is about something different. The State Department, according to some reporting by the New Republic, terminated a contract to the Yale School of Public Health's humanitarian research lab. They were tracking evidence of the Ukrainian children that have been abducted by Russia since Russia's invasion of Ukraine. Some of that evidence was about to be, from their work, it was about to be transferred to European law enforcement officials. Can you comment at all on whether it is true that this grant was terminated, and whether you have any other comment on that?
Well, I can't confirm that, but obviously I'll take it back and I'll get back to you so we can get some details in that regard. Yes, yes, sir.
I also have a question on Russia-Ukraine, but before that, let me follow up on Radio Free Europe quickly from different angle. This administration last month secured one of the reporters jailed in Belarus, was working for Radio Free Europe, and I want to give you credit for that. Now, given how strongly you feel about the cases, can you assure us that you will continue securing the release of Radio Free Europe reporters, one of them in Azerbaijan and other countries, even if you end up defunding them?
Well, that's not something I can answer here, again, when it comes to the nature of the choices that will be made. But what I can tell you is that this is a country that has led the way from the very start of radio, of making sure that voices are heard everywhere. That this is something this country can be proud of. And it sits within the framework of what matters to us. At the same time, this nation has to look, and I don't think it's anything to be ashamed of, look to the nature of how America is going to be able to remain strong and safe and secure and more prosperous so that we can continue to move through with foreign aid, with facilitating voices that normally other parts of the world would not hear. It is a part of democracy. And of course, you want every nation to have that kind of commitment as well when it comes to who's able to be heard. So that's a commitment that stands. It is the heart of this nation. And certainly that's not going to be ending. The framework of certain things might change, or how we facilitate them, but certainly not that commitment. And I think we've done a good job of that, and we should all be proud of it as well.
My second question, Tammy, on Russia-Ukraine, I was going to actually, that was my original question.
Well, I've clearly lost the bucket of issues here as we've gone from a few things back. But go ahead.
On reports that the United States pulled back from international group investigating Russian crimes. What is the strategy there, and what message are you sending to Russia, who continues actually committing crimes as we speak?
Look, this is we're going to be looking into a number of different things. That's anecdotal, the nature. I'm not familiar with the nature of what happened, so I'm not going to be able to speak to that. Yes, right down the middle here. Yes, sir.
Thank you so much.
I think, the gentleman in front of you, sir. Go ahead.
Thank you, Tommy. Daniele Compatangelo for LA7, Italian TV and Primetime Media. So we both were at the G7 the last week.
Yes, we were.
And the focus was Ukraine. So
Yes.
today in Europe, there was European Council. They met, the foreign minister, and they discussed about Ukraine and the European Union proposals. So it seems like there are, Europe is very divided right now, like Italy, Spain, Ukraine, Hungary and Slovakia are more aligned to Trump proposal. It's not proposal, but like plan. And the other ones, more lefties, are like want to keep giving aids, military aids to Ukraine. So, what is the what do you, as a State Department, how do you guys will interact with the European right now? Are we going to go for the Trump plans or the European ones?
I think we're going to go with the Marco Rubio approach, which is to talk to everybody, which is to put out the new ideas, which is to argue for them on the merits of those ideas. That's what happened at the G7. What happened at the G7 was a collection of people who have very different points of view, some big disagreements, but a direct, specific decision mentioned by the Canadian Foreign Minister Joly that we're going to focus on what we do have in common, what we can get done together, and really the importance of the gathering itself and what we can do together. There's a lot of people, I think, that would prefer us to be distracted by the disagreements. But what I've seen Secretary Rubio accomplish is remarkable, and in different environments where there's negotiations between countries attempting to stop war, a ministers' meeting where they're all aligned in some fashion or another and want to work together but have disagreements. I can say this, fortunately, having been there, is that it's been his voice, and I'm proud as an American that it happens to be the American Secretary of State. It's his voice that has brought conversations together, that has brought groups of people together. And we know this is why you need a State Department and why you need diplomats, because everybody's going to have different ideas. Everybody's going to think there's a better way, and we all have investments in the nature of the outcome. America is the strongest country in the world for a reason. All the combination of things we do, but mostly because we are a nation of merit and arguments and speech and the ability for people to be heard and for all of us to have an open mind. That is what Marco Rubio brings to this debate, especially in Europe where there are disagreements. We will, and he expects to, win people over based on the merits of the arguments that we continue to make every day. And I'm going to leave it there, everyone. I'll see you Wednesday and Friday this week if you didn't get enough. There'll be more to talk about. Thank you, everyone. I appreciate it. Have a great day.
Okay, so that press conference just yesterday from the State Department. And of course, we're monitoring any live developments here, including the release of the JFK files that President Trump said that would be happening today. So we'll be monitoring that in a minute. But before we continue our commentary, we got to go to mypillow.com. And not because we have to, it's because we want to. mypillow.com/RSBN. So many awesome products there. The My Coffee, I think I would like to have a cup of Joe right now, actually. It's right here. It's not open, so we'd have to go get that taken care of, but I don't know if we can do that while we're on TV.
It still smells delicious from here. My Coffee gets your day started right, and so does everything with the mega sale. The My Cross, or the exact same replica cross that Mr. Mike Lindell wears himself on a daily basis for faith, guidance, protection over all evils. And how do you get your day started great other than the My Coffee, My Cross? How about the My Towels, a 6-towel pack set for you, the American people, $29.98. I mean, what a great deal for such high quality, made in America. Those flannel sheets as well, nice and comfortable for the evening. As you relax, give them a call, 800-836-7566. Over 2,000 products at mypillow.com/RSBN for up to 80% off. I mean, talk about a great deal right there.
Exactly. So RSBN promo code going a long way with mypillow.com. All right, so it's 2:24 Eastern time. We were going to go over a number of President Trump's Truth Social posts and talk about some of the latest there. And then, of course, at about 3:30, some executive orders to be signed. Will that be when we hear about the JFK files being released? We'll see. So we'll be monitoring that. In the meantime, let's go to some video from just yesterday as we saw President Trump on his way to the microphones, walking over there at the Kennedy Center on St. Patrick's Day, of course. And he spoke about the release of the JFK files. Let's go ahead and play that clip.
So we're at the Kennedy Center. Needs a lot of work. We're going to fix it, make it beautiful. It's a very big part of the fabric of D.C. and the Capitol. We're bringing back the Capitol. We're bringing back our country. But while we're here, I thought it would be appropriate. We are tomorrow announcing and giving all of the Kennedy files. So people have been waiting for decades for this, and I've instructed my people that are responsible, lots of different people, put together by Tulsi Gabbard, and that's going to be released tomorrow. We have a tremendous amount of paper. You've got a lot of reading. I don't believe we're going to redact anything. I said, just don't redact. You can't redact. But we're going to be releasing the JFK files, and that would be tomorrow. Do you have anything else to add to that, Carolyn? So that's a big announcement. They've been waiting for that for decades. Then I said during the campaign I'd do it, and I'm a man of my word. So tomorrow you have the JFK files. What time will they be released? Tomorrow afternoon. Okay.
Have you seen what's in the files? Have you read them?
I've heard about them.
Was there,
Interesting?
It's going to be very interesting.
was there an executive summary supplied to you, Mr. President?
No, I'm not doing summaries. You'll write your own summaries. It's many pages. Is it 80,000 pages? Approximately 80,000 pages. So it's a lot of stuff. And you'll make your own determination.
You have criticized President Biden for using AutoPen in the last few days. Have you yourself ever used AutoPen, sir?
Yeah, only for very unimportant papers. And I don't call them unimportant. If you do letters where people write in and, they'd love to have a response, so we'll write responses. And I'll sign them whenever I can. But when I can't, I, would use an AutoPen. But to use them for what they've used them for is terrible.
Yes, sir. And when you signed the CR...
Who are you with?
Sir, I'm with NBC.
That's the same one. I don't want to talk to NBC anymore. I think you're so discredited.
Mr. President, when most people think of the Kennedy Center, they think of the Kennedy Center Honors. Takes place in December every year. Is that something that you anticipate hosting at the White House? And what do you think that
We're going to have honors. We're going to have, I think it's going to be a much bigger show than it has been in the past. It got tired, very boring, very radical left. Unless you were a radical left, it just seemed that nobody was chosen. There are a lot of people out there that can get the honors, and we're going to do it. I think we'll have a very big show. It's going to be a very big show. We have some surprises on that show, some big surprises, but I think it has a chance to be a very big show. That's a big part of the Kennedy Center, the honors that evening. And so I think you're going to be really surprised. I think it's going to get great ratings, actually.
Mr. President, there's been some discussion about potentially meeting with Putin in your administration. If there is a peace deal signed, would you be open to inviting Putin to the White House?
Well, I don't want to really even discuss it. I've got to get the deal signed. 2,000 people a week sometimes are killed, and we have to get that agreement signed. But that's the only thing I think about.
Are you confident that could happen tomorrow, as soon as tomorrow?
We're going to have a very important call. We've had calls, but we're getting down to a very critical stage. And we want to get the whole Russia-Ukraine thing done. And I think Ukraine wants it. I know they want it. Everybody wants it. It's tremendous death. The bloodshed is unbelievable, like few people have ever seen before.
And on the drug cartels, do you have a red line for the drug cartels that if crossed, it would automatically trigger a military response from the U.S.?
Well, we'll see, but we're not going to put up with it. This country is not going to allow people to come in and dump drugs and kill our youth, and other than our youth, too. Older people are very much affected, so we're not going to let that happen. Thank you very much.
Mr. President, on the 30-day ceasefire, Mr. President, is Ukraine's already committed to this. Would Russia commit to this as well, Mr. President?
They would.
Thank you, sir.
That's the boss right there.
Yeah, it really is. I mean, a beautiful Rembrandt fitting moment there. I mean, the sun just shining in the greatest president's face with the backdrop of JFK's bust. And just if you've been in that hall too, I mean, it really is glorious, but dilapidated. It needs assistance. And that's part of this revival of the American story, is to fix our great cities, especially our capital. I mean, it's so ornate, so beautiful in the evening. I love going to Washington, D.C., and to make these great cities strong, robust, and operating functionally again, because sadly, elected Democrats in these cities have turned it to absolute garbage. And President Trump, at least in his purview and executive authority in his office, going to help fix Washington, D.C.
And that's what's happening with the all-star cast of the cabinet leaders that he has picked. So each department getting rid of corruption. And we're seeing that and really reflecting even in media right now, as conservative media is a place that a lot of people are going to at this point, because they were sick of the corruption and the lies of the mainstream news. So great to see things happening on the right side of history. Now, to President Trump's point, he said 80,000 pages of this JFK trove of information is going to be released today. So as soon as that happens, of course, right here at Right Side, we will release that to you. We'll see how it's released. So we're just monitoring it live right now. It's the bottom of the hour, 2:31. In about an hour, President Trump's slated to sign some executive orders. Also, we have a number of interviews still coming up here on the broadcast. And on top of that, a bit later, at about 4:45, we'll be showing you that NASA SpaceX splashdown that's going to happen as the two astronauts are on their way back. It's supposed to happen around 5:57 p.m. Looking forward to showing you that live here on Right Side. In the meantime, Colonial Metals Group, a great sponsor.
Yes, a wonderful sponsor here at Right Side Broadcasting Network. Get that free gold guide, no obligation, and makes sense to learn how to put your bets and hedge against inflation, whether it's 401ks or IRAs, however you are protecting your assets. Maybe it's through properties. You have to add the gold and silver to your portfolio. It's really not just something that is a privilege, but a must in this day and age. So go to freegoldguide.com/RSBN or scan the QR code now and learn why people like Warren Buffett are putting their assets into gold and silver.
freegoldguide.com/RSBN. And speaking of Colonial Metals Group, the CEO and founder, his name is Paul Stone. He recently sat down with us here at Right Side Broadcasting Network. We're going to go to that interview in just a moment. But in the meantime, while this interview is playing and you get informed on, Colonial Metals Group and the economy, we will break into anything we have to when it comes to breaking news here. If there's any live feed from the White House, if there's any executive orders being signed, if we hear about a JFK files release and the like, we'll bring it to you right here on RSBN Live. I'm Matthew Alvarez, Robert McNeely, of course, fresh off the Air Force One trip over the weekend with the president. Let's take a look at this interview with Paul Stone.
We're joined by Paul Stone from Colonial Metals Group. Sir, thank you for joining us once again. I'd like to get your take on the House spending package and the bill that went into resolution and was ultimately passed. Somewhat of a surprise because it was just by that 217, 215 threshold. Shows how narrow that majority is for the Republicans.
Yeah, well, that was something to take note of. But they all voted for it except for one. I'm torn. I'm a huge fan of Donald Trump. When I got to meet him at Mar-a-Lago at his first victory celebration, put together by Larry Kudlow's initiative that helped him and what created some of the blueprint that got him back to a victorious situation with the White House rather than a cantankerous situation. I called him Braveheart. He's fighting an enemy that's already here. Sylvester Stallone had introduced him as the second coming of George Washington, but I told Mr. President Donald Trump that Washington was fighting a visiting army and navy. And this time around, Donald Trump is fighting an enemy that's already here. And so when I see that the debt ceiling needs to raise up by $4 trillion over the next 2 years, when I don't see, and I could be wrong, maybe this was adjusted, correct me please, no taxes on tips didn't make it into this one. I think it would be a larger conversation to get no taxes on Social Security, didn't make it into this one. But, whenever you're going to do tax cuts, all you're really saying is the government's going to go without money it got from you. And that's a great thing fundamentally, because we want a government that has to come to us and discuss big topics, right? They can't just print money. But if these days they're not getting money that they're used to getting, they're just going to print that money. And that's why the debt ceiling has to continue to raise up. So to me, and I'll end with this on response to your question, for someone who's just going to the ground with this, taking a farmer's approach, like just the plainest approach you could take to the economic numbers and the government and the economy and wages and inflation and the cost of commodities, just the simplest approach. If they are going to continue to print money, then they haven't cut any spending. They might be spending projectedly less than they had intended to before he came to town, but they're not cutting spending. And that breaks my heart, because that's the only thing that saves the dollar and saves and continues and stops the worsening for the American family and the American individual.
And that's a good point, because the Congressional Budget Office did say with this bill, as they scored it, that it could add to the deficit. There is part of that reconciliation package did have the no tax on tips, at least a form of that. But this was something that, took kind of the last minute to get the whipped votes together in order for passage. So we'll see ultimately how President Trump addresses this when it gets to his desk. What do you think of his plans regarding the Trump Gold Card? So it's with Howard Lutnick at Commerce to re-envision the EB-5 visa, where these green cards and these worker cards would be basically sold at a price. They could be, say that you have all these countries purchasing them with how they want to propose it. It could be up to $50 trillion for the United States, according to the administration. Then in turn, we have roughly a $36 trillion debt or so. How realistic do you think that could come about in the next few months or a couple of years from now?
I think it's an interesting idea, and this is what you want. You want this kind of thinking in the White House. You want entrepreneurial, think outside the box. How does our economy flourish? What brings benefit down to the people? We want their paychecks to benefit. We don't just want the government to benefit. Reagan famously, I guess, was saying to Carter. Yeah, Carter. He said, the people, the government doesn't have an inflation people. The people do. A problem. Right? Like the government doesn't care if there's inflation. They don't care. They print money. It's the people that suffer when they do print money. And so anything that can bring revenue into the country that isn't, hurtful or harmful to the people that are already here is a great idea. My thought would be, when I first heard that, great, let's stitch on for every person that pays the 5 million or whatever it was, billion or million, that they have to bring 10 people with them, 10 great people. That they open the door for 10 folks that have to deal with a 7-year naturalization process. You understand why these people just come across the Rio Grande? They've heard that it'll take 7 years for them to actually get to live here or be a citizen here. Who can go through that process if they aren't loaded in the bank? They don't have big bank accounts. We want common, awesome people to continue to move here. It would help offset the core of our economic problem, which is 70 million people retired starting in 1997. So if you can just focus on that for a second, we never had a retirement cost of any note until 1997, 98. Then all of a sudden, for the first time in American financial history, we had a gigantic loss from the productivity side and a new cost we'd never had before, gigantic cost that worsens every year. And now the whole planet's dealing with this, and no one talks about it. There's 917 million human beings on Earth of the 8 billion that are over 70.
And to that point, that's really interesting to dive into, because President Trump has said at the CPAC conference and recently in other speeches that he wants to protect Social Security as it stands. And that's a launch from the left. You'll hear a lot of that from Democrats on the offensive, that Republicans want to dive into those funds. Are these funds sustainable ultimately? And how do we reform that and make sure that people are getting the benefits they've paid into, but also making sure we don't go bankrupt? Because even Elon Musk mentioned that during the cabinet meeting, that this is a moral issue. If the United States goes bankrupt, it's too soon, too late.
So I guess there might be a couple definitions for bankruptcy. One would be, you're technically bankrupt. To me, the difference between Bernie Madoff and the federal government is that the federal government can print money. Imagine if Bernie could have printed money and paid those redemptions, those people wanting their money out of his fund. He would have never gotten discovered for what he was doing. But he couldn't print money, so he did get caught. So was he bankrupt? Did he go bankrupt? The government went bankrupt a long time ago. And if I could, I do have a Karl Rove approved whiteboard, and I've been talking about this all week. So when we look at real GDP, and I'll be quick, in 2021, the first year without Trump, GDP is $19.4 trillion. So if America Incorporated, and you counted all of its revenue, it did 19.4. In 2024, you can see there it did 23.4 trillion. So that's 4 trillion in GDP growth. Except you printed $8.8 trillion in those 4 years. So does that look like bankruptcy to you? Because that's not a profit. The economy shrank 4.4 trillion without the printed money. And then you look at the deficit for 2020, that 3 trillion folded into the 2021 numbers. 3 trillion, just in 2020 alone. That folds into, I'm on the wrong hand here, the 19.4 million. I need more practice with this. So when we talk about bankruptcy, it's already there. It happened a long time ago. It happened in 2008, essentially, because without American printed money, we have a negative GDP for the last 17 years. So, oh my God, when do we feel this bankruptcy? When the ability to print money, when money has no more potency left in it, it's worth 2.7 cents today, the dollar. So when that potency reaches some mathematical place of half a penny, a tenth of a penny, maybe 1 penny, we don't know how long this actually lasts. And I know no one's talking about it. And you're sitting there going, how does Paul talk about this stuff like it's important when no one else who is important is talking about it? Because I don't think they're aware of it. I really don't think they're aware of it. I know Warren Buffett is saying, just keep saving $200 a month from every paycheck, and 40 years from now, you'll have a ton of money. I don't think so, because the dollar when he started doing that was worth 80 cents. And today it's worth 3. So that's the resource that allows us to communicate today, and me to put on a suit and talk and had a breakfast and a lunch today. Without the printed money, you don't have any of this. You have Bernie Madoff.
Yeah, some fantastic points there. And do you think there should be a balanced budget amendment that Congress really has to push forward in order to streamline and stop some of this printing of the money? Because even when I look at now, I'm turning 37 relatively soon. I look in my lifetime, to your point, the devaluing of our currency and the fact that it's harder to own properties or even a first home for many in my generation, between the millennials and the Gen Zers, and even some older, because it's just their own stock and savings, their assets against inflation becoming harder and harder. So how does the average person really handle this and stand up to what's going on in United States and world markets?
Offenses win when they go where the defense isn't. So if we're just going to sign up, your demographic, your age group, your generation. If you're thinking, well, I'm just going to go the way I've seen other people go, I'm gonna maybe have to go to college, so I'll take on some debt, and then I'll get that degree, which pays me more money when I get out of college than if I just went to high school, and then I'll get that payroll going, and I'll save some money, and I'll buy a house. And it can't happen. Because as the government prints, young man, it causes the cost to go higher every year. It's the government that prints the money because it doesn't have the money to pay for Social Security, Medicaid, and Medicare, all retiree-born costs. It doesn't have the money to pay those bills. And no one there is strong enough, long time ago, to say, hey, we need quality people to come here. When Social Security was created, there were 44 workers for a retiree. Today, there's 3. The government let all that slip. The government let all of that never get spoken about or worked on as a problem. When Reagan was president, he had the gravitas to come out and say, my fellow Americans, we need to invite good folks south of the Rio Grande to come live here. Although that might have sparked a little ire in people, and they may have been, and the politicians worried about sparking off some racism claims and all kinds of frenzy going off in America. But if they had come and said, here's the numbers, in 2025, your dollar's worth 3 cents, you have $36 trillion, and you'll have crazy presidents like Biden and Obama changing you to have your kids to have talks in elementary school about what sex they're going to be. I think everyone in America would have said, oh my God, yeah, let's talk about this. We are a country of immigrants. We need more workers. We need more people living here. We need to do it fashionably. So the government can't stop printing this money. So what if we didn't go into this gerbil wheel of financial misery and we moved to the country, maybe with our college degree, or didn't go get one, and we bought a small, tiny, meager house somewhere that we could afford it, and we actually found that happiness lived there too. Because how can you have happiness if you don't have peace? And you don't have peace if all you have is 7 days a week of stress and things that you want that you can't get, but you are the quality person to have those things, like homes and cars paid for and no credit card debt. If you're the quality person that could have all that and you can't, then that's misery. And we're not even in the top 20th happiest countries on the planet. Google the list. We're 23rd. Kuwait is happier than we are. Kuwait. So when you look at what the challenges are for you guys in those younger generations, it can only get worse, brother. It can only get worse because the government's design for approaching problems like these is to print money, which creates problems they can never solve. So long ago, when we were all dealing with life and the drought came, we dealt with it. We got through it. It ended. When the plague came, it sucked and we lost lots of friends and family, but we got through it. It was temporary. The federal government isn't temporary. And that's why life can't change. So we have to change where we go. And this is the last shot. No one is going to bring probably more momentum, logic, reason, soundness than Elon Musk and Donald Trump and his administration against this slippage of erosion of American principles and fundamentals and just financial sanity. No one's going to bring a case harder against this momentum that they've been tracking on for over 30 years against us, the Americans that live here. It's evil. So last set of numbers on this point, just to articulate. In 1971, average income in America was $9,000. And guess how much a home cost? 18 grand. Twice your average income. How easy was that? It took 2 years to save to buy a house. And guess what? Mom didn't have to go to work or stay at work if she became a mom. She could check out of the workforce and raise kids because dad's income was enough. Today, the average home price is 440 grand. And it's skewed because there's a lot of printed money in these employment payroll numbers. But average income, if you kind of account for some of that, is around $48,000 a year. So the house is almost 10x your income. And it takes on average 8 years to buy a home, and those numbers are skewed because there's a lot of, if you catch that college degree and end up in financial services, there's only a few industries left in this country, and those are usually very high-paying jobs, so it skews the numbers. But if we strip that out, you might think it takes 14 years to save for a down payment to buy a home. You come out of college at 20-something, you ain't buying a home until you're 36? Wow. That's American erosion. That's where the American dream has disappeared a long time ago. Now it's just a memory. Trump working his ass off to bring that back. But those are the numbers. And numbers don't care if you're yelling from a podium. Bad math only turns into good math with a ton of good math getting mixed in. Raising the debt ceiling $4 trillion over the next 2 years is not part of good math. It's part of reality, but not good math.
Oh, no question about that. The numbers don't lie. And it's affecting every other area of life. I mean, we have people getting married later, population decrease, especially in certain demographics. And really, you only have people, I think maybe Tucker Carlson, Ron Paul, Rand Paul, perhaps Dennis Kucinich, Mike Lee, that come to mind instantly, who are really talking about how the debt is detrimental to the future of the culture and society as a whole. And as you mentioned, thank God for President Trump, thank God for Elon Musk, who are addressing it on top of all the other issues that they're facing between Doge, facing with the multitude of executive orders, and then further legislation as well, roughly within give or take 40 days in office. Now, it's just breaking news as we're talking now, but you might have caught the meeting with President Trump, President Zelensky of Ukraine, and then that press conference that did not happen. The bilateral meeting looks like it failed, at least temporarily, and Mr. Zelensky left the White House. Apparently, he was speaking to President Trump, wanting to stay for that, but sparks flew in the Oval Office, and rightfully so, as this was not going to be an easy discussion. How does the talk of gold and silver and precious commodities come into play in a situation like this for any given, individual in the United States?
Gold was $300 an ounce when the baby boomers started retiring at the turn of the century, and it's tapping on 3,000 an ounce today. So what does that say? That's just a measurement of the erosion. It continues to worsen with worldwide instability as governments everywhere struggle, fail. They fail at working with their people and their businesses and their economies to produce enough revenue to cover the costs of the country, because the whole world owes $303 trillion to itself. And so when we look at more specifically to Zelensky's behavior, he should have, his first step ought to have been, we are so grateful that we don't have to have a Russian flag flying over our capital today, and it's because of Europe and the Americans. And we'd really like this war to end and the slaughter of our brave men and women to stop. And we'd like to rebuild our apartment buildings and our power plants and our roads and stuff, schools and hospitals. Instead, he's kind of just acting like he's got it going on. He doesn't really need it. I mean, I understand Putin's the stronger, person in the room than Zelensky, right? So you gotta, I can see that Trump, perhaps, I'm just suspecting, is paying a little more airtime to that and recognizing that has to be featured and Zelensky has to be the beta and Putin kept as the alpha. And he's not liking that, but that's not going to go well. Wars and life itself is always about resources, access to resources and maintaining them. Why isn't Tom Brady throwing a football on an NFL field anymore? He lost the resource of youth. I lost the resource of hair. So when we look at how desperate all of this becomes for China, they have more homes that no one lives in than we have homes in America. I think I have that right. It's so astounding. It's hard to believe. I've read it from a few different sources. They have more empty homes that no one will live in China than we have homes in America, total. So when you just look at how the world's just breaking apart, it's fracturing as our weakness continues, our financial dominance. So I think you need gold and silver because it's not money in the dollar. You need gold and silver because it's not money in some institution you have to rely on continuing to provide you with access to your money, or a bad Microsoft update goes down and the world bugs out and you can't get on a plane or a bus or get access to your funds. I mean, who knows? The world, with more and more tech, the world becomes more and more precarious on things it doesn't fully understand or control or see warning signs of before it breaks. At least a bridge will start sending little creaky sounds to you as you drive over it, that maybe it needs some repair work done. When software goes down, boom, it's out. And this move to cryptocurrency, if someone hacks your crypto account, is there an 800 number you can call to get it back? No. What are we talking about here? You can't hack gold and silver.
Yes, some excellent points from Mr. Paul Stone, CEO of Colonial Metals Group. And the proof is in the pudding. Since 1971, if you get the free gold guide, you can get that at freegoldguide.com/RSBN. It shows you how gold has gone up over 7,000% since the end of the gold standard by the Nixon administration in 1971 until just last year. It's never dipped down significantly. It's only been an upward trend. So thank you for the common sense points, and we look forward to having you back on Right Side Broadcasting Network live very soon. Thank you to Mr. Paul Stone.
Thank you for having me. You guys are doing incredible work. God bless you all, and I appreciate your courage and all your hard work.
Likewise, sir. God bless you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, it's always a pleasure to have Paul Stone on the show to talk about the importance of gold and silver. What I love about talking to Paul is he takes very complicated topics and really narrows it down nicely for you, the consumer, and also the viewer, just to know that these commodities have stood the test of time. But we're thankful here to all of our sponsors at Right Side Broadcasting Network, especially at PatriotAddictDeals.com. Get your replica Trump Force One plane. I got to see the actual one on the tarmac, just sleeping peacefully until President Trump uses that again. And of course, if he did, it would become Air Force One. It's only designated that if the president is on board. But this Trump Force One airplane, claim yours 20% off right now. Code RSBN20. That's 20. We know it goes quick. I have one myself. It's great for your MAGA office or your man cave, or for the ladies out there too, just to have on display whatever room you'd like to in the house, because it is an item that is sure to not be missed.
Definitely. There's less than 100 left. So that's quite awesome to see that they are flying off the shelves, no pun intended. PatriotAddictDeals.com. And you were talking about a MAGA office. You're making me think of, you know, if somebody works out there that's watching maybe from work as it's about 3 o'clock Eastern, it'd be interesting to have something like that at your office. And if your friend is maybe a Democrat, and just have a little plane there, you know, Trump Force One. Anyway, all in kind fun. Don't get crazy about it. 3 o'clock, of course, right now, as we are getting ready to see the president a bit later with the executive order signings from the White House. Sometimes, of course, it's not live, it's a playback. So that means we will have to upload it to Rumble or YouTube or wherever you're watching right now if we don't get that live in the next 30 minutes or so. And as long as we are live, we will bring you everything we can, of course, here at the network. Also, on top of that, you know, when there's breaking news, even if it's, you know, 7 o'clock or 10 o'clock at night and it's a big breaking news story, you'll see one of us here bringing you live coverage. So on Truth Social just recently, President Trump posted about the fact that he had a good call with Vladimir Putin, and they are saying, hey, listen, we have to expedite this peace deal. Let's get this taken care of with Ukraine.
Yes, something that all these leaders working diligently to get to. And to Tammy Bruce's point, as we had her playback from her press conference, Marco Rubio doing an extraordinary job as Secretary of State to push for peace, to push for the mandate given to President Trump from the American people. And something that President Trump, one of the reasons he won so overwhelmingly against his opponent was because he was truly pushing for that peace between Russia and Ukraine. And we saw that the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia being gracious host for Secretary of State Rubio and also Steve Witkoff, who's doing a wonderful job himself as the Middle East envoy and securing victims of hostage taking like Mark Fogel in Russia, bringing him back, accompanying him back to Washington, D.C. just a couple short weeks ago. So a lot of successes at the State Department, and it's why they exist as diplomats, to spread peace and the American agenda throughout the world. And so we will watch that forthcoming.
Exactly. And it was great to see Mark return to the White House. We had that live coverage here on Right Side Broadcasting Network. You know, I get there's a lot of information coming at you every day, right? You know, you're looking all over the place. You want to know what's going on. And the reason why you trust Right Side is because, of course, a grassroots organization since 2015 covering all of the President Trump's rallies. And you've just grown to trust this network. And it's just awesome to see that. We were out there, met many of you that have been to rallies and the like. And we're just continuing on here at the network as it's about 2:58 Eastern. I am seeing some reports that the FBI Director Kash Patel has said that he has read the entire, or has read the JFK files of what he received there. Let me get to the exact report here so I don't misquote anything at all. From Leading Report about 12 minutes ago, FBI Director Kash Patel says he has read the entire JFK file, including all classified secrets in the past. So that is according to Leading Report there. So we'll see if Kash Patel, the FBI director, makes any announcement. And of course, if we hear anything, we'll be going to that coverage. As it is 2:59 Eastern, Tuesday, March 18th. Let's go now live to Ann Fundner. She, of course, has spoken at CPAC and was just on the stage at the DOJ the other day with President Trump. Of course, a mother of 4 children and lost her 15-year-old son, Weston, to fentanyl. Ann, thank you so much for joining us here on Right Side.
Thank you so much for having me.
We are sincerely sorry for your loss, and condolences from the Right Side family to yours. We talk every day we can about the border and having fentanyl stop going through Canada and Mexico. We know President Trump does that all the time. What's your message moving forward, to the people that are watching?
President Trump is doing all the right things. He's closing the border. He's labeling the cartels foreign terrorist organizations. He's instilled tariffs. He's working on the de minimis loophole. That's something where packages under $800 don't have to be claimed or inspected coming from overseas from China. That's something that he's actively working on. We can't disturb the shipping, so we're going to have to do that in steps, and he's absolutely working on that. The tariffs will help with closing down some of the labs in Canada, as well as dealing with the cartels and people who produce it coming from Mexico. Everything that he's doing is everything the right thing. He's also criminalizing people that are over here. That's great. I believe we're going to see much more out of this fight. But these are incredible things that are happening that we could have done in the last 4 years, but nobody did anything. So I'm very grateful for President Trump.
Now, Ann, your speech at the RNC last year, I think, moved so many hearts and minds and really woke up those who were asleep to this attack on America, especially its youth, with over 100,000 people on average being poisoned because of what you were just mentioning. Overseas drugs coming in through the border, China being involved in many cases, and tariffs can be that counter to get them to stop this evil. What has it been like having that correspondence with President Trump? And please share with us just the memory of Weston, what he was like, and how anyone can really advocate against these terrible poisonings happening across our country.
So there was a few questions in there. First of all, I just want to say it's 100,000 people a year. It's about 300 people a day, which is like a jumbo jetliner going down every day. President Trump is the most amazing, beautiful-hearted individual you'll ever meet. That's why he is the leader of not only America, but the free world. And he is everything that you'd ever imagine him to be: compassionate, beautiful heart, just a people person. You can feel that he cares about you when you talk to him. It's very genuine. Weston was such a beautiful child. He lived to make other people not only laugh, but smile. And he just always wanted to do the right thing and just be a good friend to all of his friends, a good sibling to his brothers and sister. And he went to church, was very faithful, had himself baptized. We went to Christian school. He was an athlete, great student, 3.5 GPA his freshman year. He just was an amazing kid, and he just had a heart of gold like you could never imagine. What I would love to tell parents is that they should talk to their kids about peer pressure, because my son was prepared to know better than to try anything that someone would ever give him. But I don't think he was prepared for the peer pressure that he would feel when he went to a new school the second semester of his freshman year, where he was in a small environment where people were trying something, and I don't think he wanted to make a big deal. And it was supposedly Percocet, something his doctor had prescribed recently, which I didn't allow him to take. I never picked up a prescription for it. I had him take Tylenol, but he had heard the name, and I think he just thought it was going to be something that he could get away with. Tried a quarter of a pill, what we believe, and it took him out. And it's so easy these days. Kids cannot learn from their mistakes. They die from them. But what I tell parents is to talk to your kids about peer pressure, run those scenarios. What are you going to do when somebody offers you something and everybody else is doing it? And you want to be friends with these people. You don't want to look, like a jerk, and you don't want to look like a nerd, and you don't want them to say something about you. First of all, they're not your friends if they do that. But second of all, give your kids the confidence and and really just so that they feel, that they can navigate through this without feeling pressured. And I think that's really, really important, because that's what got my son, was the peer pressure.
President Trump talking, writing with that executive order a while ago about the national crisis on the border, and basically my point is that the fact that the drug cartels in Mexico and the ones operating in Canada are now a terrorist organization. Your thoughts about them being labeled on the same level as other terrorist groups out there? I mean, is that not footing the bill for what these people are?
They're absolutely terrorists. They don't care who they kill. They kill aimlessly. They know that fentanyl kills people. They push it to make a dime, and they're killing people on American soil. 500,000 Americans have been dead. Have been killed on American soil. It is the number one killer of people ages 15 to 48. That number has recently changed. People aren't quoting that yet, and it's the fastest growing demographic is 14 and under. So there you go. It is absolutely killing people. These people don't care if it's your child, your brother, your sister, your mother. They don't care. They're just worried about making money, and they are terrorists. And during my RNC speech, I had mentioned that we need to label the cartels for what they are, terrorist organizations. And President Trump leaned over to at that point, who is now Vice President J.D. Vance, and he said something, and the news said that he was whispering we should do it, and he did. And I know he had talked about it in the past as well, and that's exactly what they are. They are terrorists. And if it were up to me, we would go SEAL Team 6 on them, drop down. I would be in the helicopter waving, because these people need to be taken out, every last one of them.
And I think Tom Homan would agree with you, the borders are.
Oh, no question about that, because it's true they are. They're perpetuating evil against the most innocent Americans. And how can we remember not only the memory of your son, but advocate for the countless victims to this terrible poisoning and attack that leaves so many families reeling?
It does leave them reeling, and people just they have this perfect life, and then something like this happens, and they're left to pick up the pieces. So talk to your kids about peer pressure. Obviously, talk to them about drugs. These are not the drugs of our generation. They are completely a different class. Every single thing that you touch should be you should absolutely assume that it does contain fentanyl or nitazines. I mean, the next class of drugs that are coming down are disgusting. They're lacing fentanyl with nitazines, and then they're taking that laced fentanyl and putting it in kids' drugs. It is disgusting what is going on. Talk to your kids. They can't try anything. They're finding it anywhere from marijuana to vapes to weed pens. It's in everything. So anything that they try, we have to assume that there could be fentanyl, which is deadly. 7 out of 10 pills will kill. And also talk to your kids about peer pressure.
Exactly. There's a saying, you work like it all depends on you and pray like it all depends on God. And what we're seeing here is that President Trump and the team have already said that these guys are a terrorist organization. So we'll see what happens when it comes to on the human side. But we're praying to God right now, and let's just pray, Ann, if that's okay with you. We're just going to pray here on the network live with you for the family, but also for this epidemic, this problem that's in our country right now, for the power of God to move across this land. So if you'd pray with us, and anybody that's watching right now, if you're a believer, pray with us. If you're not, we'll be done here in a second. God, we just praise you in Jesus' name. We ask you right now, Father God, for your Spirit to comfort Ann right now and her family and her the siblings of Weston and her husband, God. I just pray in Jesus' name that you move by your Spirit across this land, Father God. Help us get things right when it comes to this fentanyl situation. God, guide President Trump to get it done and taken care of. And I know he's working hard. So we just pray your protection on the president. We pray your protection on Ann and the family. And God, please, in the name of Jesus, pour out your Spirit on this earth. In Jesus' name, amen.
Amen. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Ann.
That was beautiful. Thank you so much.
What was that like for you when you were at the DOJ just the other day and you were up there on stage with the leader of the free world?
Oh, I can't even put it into words. It's such an honor to stand beside and speak with President Trump. Standing right there is just there are no words. It's such an honor, and I hope that translated. And then he's just such a warm gentleman. He just he showed how much he cares about a mother who's lost a child. It was so apparent. It was just such an amazing, amazing experience.
Well, thank you so much, Anne. Angel Mom, you are truly a hero, and we remember and honor Weston's memory, and we'll keep speaking out on this very issue. You're always welcome back here on Right Side Broadcasting Network.
Thank you. Thank you. I appreciate that. Thank you so much for having me on and letting me spread awareness. Thank you.
Definitely. And I think that's the thing. Anne, thank you so much. I mean, that's the thing that she's talking about. She wanted to come on this network too, because we're able to continue it in the narrative of truth and of common sense. When the mainstream media shuts its mouth about these terrible things happening and they lie against President Trump and they lie against we the people, they're doing an absolute disservice to freedom.
They really are. And elected Democrats in Washington, D.C., and really throughout this country, where are you on this? This should be a bipartisan issue. Over 80%, 90% of Americans, when aware of this, want to take care of it in their communities. And it doesn't matter if you're in McAllen, Texas, or if you're in my hometown of Glen Ellen, Illinois. It's affecting everyone. We're all a border city. That's why it makes sense what Tom Homan is doing on the border. Kristi Noem as well, under the leadership of President Trump, because he recognized this. Going back 10 years ago to seal the border, it not only takes the jobs of American citizens, but it's killing our youngest, our best and our brightest. And people like Anne have to live with that for the rest of their lives. So help out your fellow citizens. And when Americans are aware of these situations, they go into action, whether it's financial, whether it's just consoling someone who's lost a loved one. And that's why here at Right Side Broadcasting Network, this is what we talk about when we're on the right side of history. It's not only ideological, it's about common humanity and spreading that goodwill. And I just think the world of Anne, and she's inspired a populist movement to stop the evils coming from China, coming through the southern border. And as you said, Matthew, the foreign terrorist organizations that exist now above our northern border with Canada as well. Thank God it's all coming to an end, because this evil has to stop.
It does. And Director, do we have the video from our military along the southern border? President Trump saying this is a national emergency, and there was that deployment of the Army, of the Marines, of the National Guard to secure the border, to seal the border, to put up more metal wiring. And the other day, the DHS Secretary Kristi Noem saying, you know what? Hey, guess what? The construction of the border wall is continuing. And we can hear those chants to this day. Even though we're in a studio in Alabama, we remember the chants that you guys did during the rallies over the years. In the first administration, the second administration campaign trail, build the wall. So they're building that wall, and it's great to see that for our country at 3:12 Eastern Time. And this is why Tom Homan the other day in New York City, when there were some protesters yelling at him in New York. First of all, why are you yelling at Tom Homan? What did he do? You want an open border? You want more of this to happen? And so he ate an apple in New York, of all places, the big apple. He's just eating the apple, walking by with his security team. Tom Homan is a bad you-know-what.
Oh, yeah, and the other thing about it, too, is that he's great when it comes to getting a message out there. I mean, even he basically laughed at fake news individuals who were at the White House, saying that, why are you looking at a 1789, Alien Sedition Act? He goes, well, we follow something that's even older than that, the U.S. Constitution.
That's what he said the other day.
And then it's like the mic drop. And those memes, of course, the sunglasses and the chains and little Snoop Dogg music accompanying that. But
yeah.
I mean, he really is. He's a subject matter expert at this. He's been doing this since he was in his 20s, law enforcement. Let the man do his job.
Exactly. And we're looking forward to seeing more of the great accomplishments from President Trump and the team. Again, we talk about this all-star cast of cabinet leaders. We're really seeing it. But we have to also, you know how they say if somebody doesn't, well, I don't know the saying specifically, but basically when you toot your own horn, right? Well, we're going to toot our own horn here for just a second, because the left-wing media has been so corrupted, and we are like the Doge of media. We are like the opposite of the corruption and the fake news. Conservative media is, and of course here at Right Side, because we are citizens that are not reading a teleprompter from some script that somebody wrote from the top that's all based in all this junk out there. These are from the heart and the mind right here. And President Trump doesn't usually use a teleprompter either, and it's always good.
Isn't it nice to have a president who does not need one? Remember that rally in Michigan, all the wind knocked him down. He said, well, I guess we're going. And he spoke on for another 45 minutes.
Yeah.
It's someone who has really the mind and the heart of a lion, the courage that exists. Reminds me of that time he was on Trump Force One with our now Secretary of Health and Human Services, Bobby Kennedy. And Mr. Kennedy said, President Trump pulled out a napkin and started drawing the exact coordinates and the geography of the Middle East, knowing all of the different players and the actors. So this is a man whose brain is just fully engaged. So it's nice to have someone who can communicate that, but also the knowledge of facing our enemies and how to help our friends abroad. So again, yes, Matthew, you are so true in stating an all-star cast in Washington, D.C. to make America great again.
Exactly. And I see now that on Truth Social, okay, I love Truth Social. X is awesome too, guys, but Truth is awesome. So the White House is now on Truth Social. It's always been, on X. There's only 1,000 followers because they just started posting something. So the first one that they posted, they only post on the White House Truth Social. So those of you watching right now that aren't watching on your phone, or maybe you can minimize our screen for a second if you want, but the golden age of America has arrived on Truth Social. The White House is proud to be here, direct, unfiltered, and for the people. Love it. Following it right now, the White House. Awesome.
Yes, go follow right now. It's at White House,
Yep.
and you will see the verification mark as well. So make sure you're following them. The red check mark, that is something that everyone wants, and I know that because I worked there.
Yeah, exactly. And it's awesome. So, so what we're going to do is, Director, I'm going to send this to you. If we can play the video that the White House just posted on Truth Social, that'd be awesome if we could play that here just to show people that maybe, if they're driving and they're just listening to us, who knows,
Oh, absolutely. It's a wonderful thing to see, this media in real time, and so many of you are getting your information from social media. So whatever your favorite thing is to follow, perhaps it's Truth or Rumble, YouTube, Facebook, Instagram, and of course, X, which is owned by Elon Musk. I mean, it's amazing how many things this gentleman can do. But whatever that might be, please like, share, and subscribe across all platforms. Go to rsbnetwork.com/newsletter. You can see that on your screen right there to get all of the unlimited access and the right side of history, brought to you by Right Side Broadcasting Network Live. We are a live desk for you, covering everything inside and outside of the Beltway. And if you have an America First story to share with us, we want to be your voice. Go to feedback at rsbn.tv. That is feedback at rsbn.tv. We read everything that comes across the channels, good, bad, and the ugly, but we want to advocate for you, the American people, to make a difference and to give light to those stories that might get thrown on the dirt that hits them when they're good stories, because other outlets have a lot of different political, corporate, structured ladders to go through and hoops that you might not get a good story because someone's throwing sand on it. We want to bring light to the darkness. So feedback at rsbn.tv.
Exactly. All right. So thanks so much for streaming in live with us. So it's 3:17. We have a few more Truth Social posts to go over from President Trump recently. And also at about 4:45 Eastern time, the NASA SpaceX, the splashdown off the coast of Florida, it's scheduled for 5:57. 2 astronauts on their way back. So we're going to be able to see that live right here on Right Side Broadcasting Network. It's going to be on a different stream that you can click on a little bit later. And we may be interviewing someone with the United States Space Force as well, just outside of today's events, just to talk to us about the 5 years of Space Force's existence. And that'll be quite cool if we can get that interview. It looks like it will be lined up a bit later today. We'll air that after the NASA SpaceX splashdown. So it's 3:18, and Robert, I understand we have a number of those Truth Social posts as well.
Yes, and to Ann's point earlier, how tariffs are working to protect the American homeland, not only growing our wealth, but stopping the Chinese Communist Party and foreign terrorist organizations like Tren de Aragua, the border cartels, and also MS-13 from bringing that poison in over our borders. We have information. April 2nd is going to be the reciprocal tariff day. So this is mostly for Mexico and Canada to get their house both in order and to work with the United States in order to bring more wealth to North America as a whole, but also so we're not taking advantage of. And as President Trump said, April 2nd is the new Liberation Day for America, because we'll start talking or taking back some of the vast wealth that has been taken from us due to the many weak, incompetent, and perhaps even dishonest politicians who have represented us in the past. And that's a direct hit at his living predecessors, both Republican and Democrat, the globalists who really weakened the American middle class, all while claiming that they advocated for them. And that's Bill Clinton, George W. Bush, Barack Obama, and of course, Joseph R. Biden Jr., all losers who really failed the American people.
They have. And there's also on X now, there's a Tim Walz and a Gavin Newsom interview going around, making its rounds on there. And Tim Walz saying some colorful things about what he can do to Republicans and to the MAGA base and all this stuff. It's just stupid. These guys are, and then on top of that, the Tesla charging stations are getting burned up. And I don't know if you saw the video.
Yes, I mean,
within the past couple hours. So you don't see that on the right side of history. We're just working on making this country great again, not tearing it down and destroying it like the left. So,
well, and that's what we believe in, personal property rights. I would never do that. I'm a veteran of many campaigns, local, state to federal. I would never ever touch a campaign sign that's in someone's private property. It's their freedom of speech to display that. And that's why we have more peace, more prosperity with more dialogue, freedom of speech. That's what we, the people, believe in against this oligarchy of people who have come together, whether it's an R or a D next to their name, the deep state, the globalists, who want to take advantage of you, the American people. And I think that was on full display during the confirmation hearings, which President Trump is batting 1,000 at the plate with Senate confirmations, with over 20 of them, whether it be his cabinet or his undersecretaries and those executive appointments that need confirmation from the Senate. Bobby Kennedy finally sat there. He was being such a gentleman. And he said, Bernie, Senator Sanders, where are you getting all your campaign funds from? Like Pfizer and all these other companies that want to keep people in the dark when it comes to what's really the ingredients in some of their medications. Well, Bernie Sanders didn't want to talk about that. So I thought that was interesting. He claims to be a populist champion, clearly someone who is against the middle class on a daily basis.
President Trump, the president of all of this country, and we're seeing the majority of this nation on the right side of history. And we saw that with the win during the first administration, the win in 2020, we know what happened there, and now the win in 2024. So the people have spoken, and we are reflecting those voices here at Right Side because we are also, we the people, sitting right here. And it's great to do that here for you live at 3:22. A few more Truth Social posts, I believe, that we have as well.
Yes, and we have a new FAA, the administrator nomination that has gone up, and thank God for President Trump. Again, meritocracy. We're getting away from the DEI, and we need that to happen because of some of the failures that have taken place at the highest echelons of the American government. President Trump saying he is pleased to announce the nomination of Brian Bedford to serve as administrator of the Federal Aviation Administration, otherwise the FAA as you might know it. As the former president and CEO of Republic Airways, Mashaba Airlines, and the Business Express Airlines, Brian brings over 3 decades of experience in aviation and executive leadership to this critical position. Brian will work with our great Secretary of Transportation, Sean Duffy, to strongly reform the agency to safeguard our exports and ensure the safety of nearly 1 billion annual passenger movements. Congratulations, Brian. That gives me so much hope, too, because we travel fairly regularly for this beautiful network, and you just want to make sure everything is safe on the ground, as we've covered some wild things happening recently in the aviation world. And Sean Duffy had to inherit a bloated agency from Secretary Buttigieg, who we'll be watching him. He's thinking about running for president. He has said he will not run for that Michigan Senate seat in 2026. And talk about a DEI hire in that regard, someone who likes to tote his name and claim that he has a big resume to back it up. Someone who was not on the job for all these man-made disasters that happened during the Biden administration, including East Palestine, Ohio, with that horrible train derailment.
The undercurrent of all this is simple. You guys know it. We've said it before. Good versus evil. That's what's going on. We see that. So what we're trying to do here, though, is to bring as much unity and peace as possible throughout our country. The people that are on the left, the everyday Democrats, they're not that woke or that radical. The everyday ones, I've met some, I know some, and it's not as radical as the media and those extreme radicals are really making it out to be. That's just the whole false narrative thing going on. So we're hoping for the best in this country as we continue to march one day at a time, as we are about, I think it's 57 days now into President Trump's second administration. Beautiful pictures there in Washington, D.C. Director, do we have the Truth Social post that was just sent into the group from the conversation that President Trump had with President Putin? If we could maybe put that on the screen. If not, we can go ahead and read that here quickly. This is from President Trump on Truth just within the past half hour. My phone conversation today with President Putin of Russia was a very good and productive one. We agreed to an immediate ceasefire on all energy and infrastructure with an understanding that we will be working quickly to have a complete ceasefire and ultimately an end to this very horrible war between Russia and Ukraine. This war would have never started if I were president. President Trump says many elements of a contract for peace were discussed, including the fact that thousands of soldiers are being killed, and both President Putin and President Zelensky would like to see it end. That process is now in full force and effect, and we will, hopefully, for the sake of humanity, get the job done. That from President Trump within the hour. So, when we say peace through strength, and when he says that, he means it.
Working hard for that as well. It was on the forefront of his mind over the weekend as he addressed the out-of-town press pool before we entered Air Force One, speaking on the Russia updates, and when he came to the back of the plane on Sunday evening, going into Monday morning. Mind you, it was 1:45 This man had played 36 holes of golf, enjoyed Mar-a-Lago for the weekend, but it was a working weekend, striking the Houthi rebels, in the process also signing H.R. 1968 into law to extend the opening of the government through September with full funding. An amazing man with incredible energy, talking about this exact issue to start off our line of questioning and our mini press conferences on both Friday and Sunday with the president.
So in about 4 minutes, it's a public schedule for the president that at 3:30 he was going to be signing executive orders in the White House. Most likely what's been happening with the EOs is this would be not a live event. It would be recorded and then it would be uploaded later. So most likely that's what we're going to be doing here at the network. So you can look out on Rumble and our social platforms as we get that information. Also, of course, we're monitoring anything with the JFK files. Of course, we'll be posting that or any information we get as soon as we get any of that. And on top of that, over the weekend, the great trip that Robert McNeely, of course, was on, there was a pretty cool moment, too, that when you were on the airplane, you had a pretty good meal.
It was quite delicious, a taco bowl. And you might remember from that legendary tweet that was made famous by then candidate President Trump about the best taco bowls are made in the Trump Tower, of course. Well, I thought maybe pay homage, not only for a personal memory, but on St. Patrick's Day. I just mentioned that the best taco bowls are made on Air Force One. I said, am I right, Mr. President? And I tagged him on True Social. And again, thanking the staff, not only the president, but the amazing Air Force and, of course, all civilian members who make this journey so remarkable and so comfortable for not only the press, but also those visitors and guests who are on board. Really the friendliest flight in all of the skies. So thank you so much again for your hospitality. We deeply appreciate having the opportunity to ask you questions, Mr. President, and thank you for tuning into the network and watching us here at Right Side Broadcasting Network live. It was a wonderful meal and a wonderful, comfortable visit to Palm Beach, Florida, an extraordinary place where I've enjoyed over the years going to Turning Point USA conferences. Always a lovely town to peruse and enjoy, and maybe you caught some of the Palm Beach bagpipe crew as well as they were celebrating St. Patrick's Day over the weekend. So again, thank you to the administration, the press and communications team, especially Stephen Chung and everyone who worked so hard behind the scenes to make it accessible to the press and in turn to you, the American people, to broadcast all of the exciting moments happening from this White House.
Truth and transparency personified. Wonderful to see. At the bottom of the hour right now. So we'll thank some sponsors. We'll close out the broadcast at this point. And then again, if there's any breaking news from now until about 4:45, we'll be here for you. Also at 4:45, a new stream, the NASA SpaceX splashdown at about 5:57 off the coast of Florida. Looking forward to seeing that happen.
Yes.
We may be also interviewing someone with the United States Space Force outside of today's event, just to talk about 5 years of being in part of the Space Force, a lieutenant colonel. So quite awesome to see that. We'll air that interview after the splashdown on the NASA coverage, which is the next stream over. But in the meantime, Colonial Metals Group, as you know, great sponsors here at Right Side, freegoldguide.com/RSBN. Robert, as we know, tax sheltered IRA, 401k, backed in gold and silver.
You've heard it here first with Paul Stone, the CEO, who's been gracious enough to come on the show on multiple occasions, really taking complicated issues, making them simple to understand. And whatever you want to do with diversifying your assets, gold and silver must be, in addition to properties, other assets, and of course your 401k and IRA. How do you do that? Scan that QR code now to shield your savings, and also freegoldguide.com/RSBN gives you all that information, no obligation. Don't delay. Scan that QR code today.
There you go. Let's move on to our next sponsor here on Right Side Broadcasting Network, as it's 3:30 Eastern. Let's go to mypillow.com/RSBN. Really, you don't need us to say a word because the website's right there and there's some great deals on the mega sale.
A mega sale, a wonderful thing to do. Get that My Cross the My towels, flannel sheets, all for extraordinary low prices now. But with over 2,000 products in the online office, get up to 80% off. I mean, I can't think of a better deal out there that is existing right now. And of course, Mike Lindell, he was canceled by Bed Bath & Beyond and by other leftist outlets. I don't think they exist anymore as a result of you, the American people, wanting to help out a great patriot who believes so deeply in the First Amendment and election integrity. So thank you to Mike Lindell for all you do, and really a great staff. I mean, second to none, all operating out of Minnesota, taking great products from around the world and right here in the United States, but everything American made at these facilities way up north in Minnesota. A beautiful state, wonderful people. Go to mypillow.com/RSBN.
And if you go woke, you go broke, and that counts for the media as well on the left side of the aisle with the mainstream lies that we've been hearing over the years. So great to see Mike Lindell doing awesome there, mypillow.com/RSBN. All right, so it's 3:32. If you'd like to donate to the network here at Right Side, all you have to do is text RSBN to 801-801. So RSBN to 801-801. Also, the newsletter, rsbnetwork.com/newsletter, gives you a lot of great information right into the email inbox. For all of us here at Right Side Broadcasting Network, including RSBN's Megan Kohler, who joined us earlier live, and also, we have seen over the past couple of weeks, RSBN's Christina Loren and Ashley Brassfield. Ashley from South Carolina, then Christina from Tennessee, and Megan in Ohio. It's been quite awesome just to have a team of people moving forward here at the network.
Yes, and to give you every kind of access on the ground, what's going on around your country, this great American experiment, nearly 250 years young next year. Just so excited to see what's happening between now and then, as President Trump knocking it out of the park with his extraordinary team, from Doge to the cabinet to a Republican Congress more united than ever before.
Robert McNeely right there. I'm Matthew Alvarez. Guys, we'll see you hopefully at the 4:45 mark while we have this coverage from NASA and SpaceX while we watch this splashdown a little bit later. And I believe we'll also have an interview with the United States Space Force, just talking about Space Force. How awesome is that? We'll see you in a bit. Thanks for watching.
Welcome to Right Side Broadcasting Network, your trusted conservative news outlet. At RSBN, we deliver the truth when the mainstream media falls short. Since 2015, we've proudly broadcasted every single one of President Trump's iconic MAGA rallies, bringing you the excitement and energy live before anyone else. By watching RSBN, you get an unfiltered front row view of the action on the ground. We interview the crowds to give a voice to millions of Americans just like you. We show you President Trump's speeches in their entirety, free from interruptions and censorship. We cover the stories that matter to you with the integrity and passion you deserve. Thank you for choosing RSBN as your home for America First News. Together, we stand strong, united, and informed. So join us and be part of the right side of history.
Hey y'all, it's Silk from the Diamond and Silk Chit Chat live show. Look, don't forget to check me out right here on RSBN Network. Be sure to watch the show on Right Side Broadcasting Network, and I want you to support Right Side Broadcasting Network. Yes, it's imperative that you do so, okay? I look to see y'all soon. Bye-bye.
I hear every day about the products you all wish MyPillow carried. Well, guess what? We probably do. Slippers, bathrobes, pet beds, blankets, mattresses, sleepwear, loungewear, duvets, comforters, pot holders, aprons, oven mitts, and so much more. And they're all on sale. For example, get our best-selling standard MyPillows for only $14.98. Body pillows, $29.98. 6-piece bath towels or kitchen towel sets, just $29.98. Multi-use MyPillow 2.0s with pillowcase, $9.98. Save $40 on our Spring Percale and Giza Dream bedsheet sets. Any size, any color, and so much more. So go to MyPillow.com or call the number on your screen. Use your promo code to save up to 80% on all MyPillow products. And I've never done this before. When you spend $100 or more, you're going to get 2 standard MyPillows absolutely free.